What's up guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is What If Naruto has element Dojutsu. Summary: while being attacked by drunks, Naruto awakens some crazy power. Not from QB, but from his own DNA. A bloodline that starts with him, and allows him to control the earth. Chapter 9. The Finals. The month between the preliminaries and the finals had gone pretty quickly. While the month had gone by, all the participating Jonin had been training insanely. Kakashi was disappointed in himself when he heard tales of the training that they had received from Naruto. The younger blonde had taught his team in 2 months more than what he had taught them in the entire time he had them. Sakura and Emi tried to go to Kakashi for training since they figured he would have learned his lesson. Unfortunately, he was already gone by then to train Sasuke for the finals. When they didn't, they went to Naruto for help. He was hard to find, but they managed to track them down. Naruto then focused on enhancing the girl's chakra control further. While training, Naruto told Sakura about chakra scalpels and how they were helpful in combat. It was then that Sakura mentioned fusing that technique with Tsunade's super strength. The idea ran through Naruto's brain about the fusion, and the two thought of ways to combine the two moves. As for Emi, the girl tried to find a way to fuse lightning chakra with her iron traps, as well as how to set them during the battlefield quickly and efficiently. To help her with this, Naruto gave her a special belt with different scrolls. The scrolls had metal traps in them that had special seals that stored lightning chakra. Naruto gave her a specialized jutsu of his own making called Lightning Style, Lightning Flash. The technique focused lighting chakra in her hands, and when clapped causes a bright flash of light that temporarily blind opponent, allowing escape, a sneak attack, or an opening for a powerful technique. When that was done, Naruto also gave them a jutsu to help in their coming battles. Thank you again Berry for the inspiration. For Sakura it was Earth Style, Gravel Gauntlet. The technique formed boxing gloves around the hands made out of chakra. Now the gloves were strong enough to break bones, but that was only if you added enough chakra. If you didn't, it would still hurt like heck. Emi got Lightning Style, Electron Whip. The technique formed a whip made of electricity on her fingers. When struck, an electrical surge goes through the body of the target and causing them to become paralyzed for about 40 seconds. Eventually Sasuke came to Naruto demanding a jutsu from him. Naruto grinned in response and gave him one. The thing is, it wasn't powerful and was mostly used as a joke. When Naruto showed it to Sasuke, he faked molding chakra and used his fire manipulation powers to fire a huge surge of pure white flames. Sasuke, without his Sharingan, didn't see this and took the technique. While he thought it was a powerful technique, the fire jutsu was actually pretty weak. It was called Fire Style, Flame Pellet. It would fire a few fireballs about the size of a marble. They could explode, but it would only be with the force of a firecracker. What Sasuke didn't know was that Naruto had a second jutsu to go with that technique that turned the little pellets into small grenades. Naruto didn't teach him that one though, because he wanted to see the look on the Uchiha's face when the jutsu failed. When he wasn't helping the good members of his team, Naruto was training with his new weapons. Naruto found that when he used Ice Tiger, his control over wind and ice jutsu was greatly increased. Naruto learned that with the shell crashers he could add earth chakra to them and was able to smash them through the hardest of materials. Naruto learned with crashing fire he could ignite the two weapons on the edge of the chains and then send the flames hurling with a single strike. Crushing Dragon had the same powers as crashing fire, except it didn't have as long as a reach and the flames didn't burn as hot. Naruto eventually learned to summon the animals himself, not using enough chakra to summon the bosses of the contracts. He actually formed a deep partnership with 3 tigers from Aki's clan. They were called the Frozen Fangs for their ice jutsu and their incredible skills in combat. The tigers also came handy when he wanted to intimidate some girls away from him. After his date with Tsume, things had gone well for the two. Kiba was initially shocked that Naruto was dating his mother and was considering fighting him, but remembered that Naruto was a jonin for a reason. That and having his mother threaten to rip his colon out and shove it up his butt was a good reason too. A lot of Naruto's fangirls were upset when they learned that Naruto was now off the market. Some of them even plotted to sneak into the Inuzuka compound to assassinate her so Naruto would be single. That idea was lost to them when the girls who tried were found outside the hospital with multiple broken bones, burns, and a lot of bite and claw marks. After that nobody tried again. The Chunin exam finals, the central arena. The entire village had come to see the finals. A lot of them were potential customers to the villages wanting to see who they should hire for mission and all that other stuff. Among them were the Konoha 12 members who didn't make it. In a special booth overlooking the arena were the Hokage and the Kazekage. In the ring stood Emi, Neji, Gaara, Sakura, Temari, Kankuro, Shino, and Shikamaru. Naruto looked down from the stands with Tsume standing next to him. "Shame Kiba isn't down there," Tsume said as she wrapped her arms around her boyfriend. I would have loved to see him fight. Naruto chuckled and said, "That's what he gets for underestimating one of my students." Ino was nearby watching the fight intently. She wanted to see Sakura fight so she could prove that her losing was a total fluke. Unlike Sakura, Ino had yet to get out of the fangirl stage. She saw her loss as a major blow to her chances with Sasuke, even if they were non-existent in the first place. "Alright," a man with a senbone in his teeth said, "My name is Genma. I'll be the proctor for the finals. Now there has been a slight change up in the lineup, so learn the setup." The man held up a new roster showing who was fighting who. Emi vs Neji, Sasuke vs Gaara, Sakura vs Temari, Kankuro vs Shino, Shikamaru vs winner of round 3. Shikamaru sighed in his head and thought, "Great, my troublesome opponent may be gone, but I still have to fight one of two troublesome women. What a drag." After everyone went over the roster, Genma said, "Okay, the first match of the Chunin exams finals between Emi and Neji. Those two stay, but the rest of you got up to the designated area." The two ninjas stayed down in the arena and Genma said, "The first round with Neji vs Emi will now begin. Are the contestants ready? Begin." Neji immediately activated his Byakugan and charged at Emi, intent on ending the match quickly as fate smiled upon him. Emi quickly dodged the attack before she grabbed Neji's arms and pulled, making the boy stumble. Emi then focused chakra into one knee and brought it up, slamming the appendage into Neji's stomach, making him cry out in pain. He was then knocked backwards by a powerful punch to the face. "You are stronger than you look," Neji said. "It seems fate has allowed you to challenge me." Neji shot forward and aimed a few strikes at Emi. The girl dodged them, but Neji changed his tactics and pulled his arms back, not allowing her to grab him again. At the moment, Emi was glad her training included dodging enhanced punches from Naruto. As she dodged, the trap mistress in training took a few pellets out of her pocket. When she dodged a strike aimed for her shoulder, she threw the ball in Neji's face. The balls burst, sending a liquid over his face. Neji screamed in pain as he felt his eyes sting. Trickster rule number 1: think outside the box, Emi thought as the lemon juice in the balls took effect on Neji's eyesight. As the Hyuga prodigy's eyesight began to clear, he found himself punched in the face, kicked in the gut, before a roundhouse kick sent him sprawling. A lot of people were surprised that fangirl was actually kicking butt, especially since she only passed the academy on academics. Her parents, however, beamed down at the arena in pride at seeing their baby girl take on one of the more powerful clans of Konoha and winning. While Neji was down, Emi went through hand signs before calling out her jutsu. Lightning style, feathers of the Thunderbird. Emi pushed her hands out as electric feathers shot out of her hands. Neji saw this and cursed. Rotation. Neji spun on his heel, forming a dome of chakra that blocked the feathers and sent them flying in different directions. While Neji was still spinning, Emi pulled a scroll of her belt and opened it, revealing it to be blank, and set it out in front of her before kicking the dirt, making the topsoil cover the paper. When Neji stopped spinning, he yelled, "You little piece of filth!" Neji charged blindly in a stance the watching Hyuga knew. It was for their most powerful technique. In his blind rage, Neji didn't watch where he was going and stepped on the hidden parchment. 3 curved metal spikes shot up and bit into Neji's ankle just below the tibial artery. The lighting seal on the trap sent a volt of electricity through the man's leg, making eye go numb. As Neji cried out in pain, he heard Emi call out a technique. Lightning style, electron whip. A whip made of lighting focused on her fingers and shot off, wrapping around Neji, shocking him and paralyzing his body. He was then the victim of a lighting chakra enhanced haymaker that knocked him straight out. Winner, Emi. The Hyuga were shocked. One of the strongest clans in the village, humbled by a civilian-born ninja. Emi's parents were hugging each other and jumping up and down with joy at seeing their daughter fight so well. As Emi went to the contestants' box, certain members of the crowd were talking. "That kid was a Hyuga, right?" One man asked. "I thought they were supposed to be strong." Another civilian said, "Maybe clan name doesn't mean much in terms of power like it used to back in the day." The other civilians nodded as they heard this. In the cage booth, Sarutobi said, "Interesting. She showed excellent use of lightning jutsu and skills with traps. Quite impressive for a former fangirl, isn't it?" The Kaze cage nodded and said, "One of Konoha's strongest clans humbled by a civilian one. This should be a real eye-opener for the clan." In the arena, Genma said, "Okay, will the Gaara of the desert and Sasuke Uchiha please come down to the ring?" Gaara appeared in a blast of sand and waited for a few minutes. When he didn't show, the Kaze Kage turned to the leader of the Leaf Village. "It looks like he isn't going to show," Sarutobi said. "Hokage-sama, I ask that you hold off the boys' match until later." The Kaze Kage said, "Many people came here to see the Uchiha survivor fight." The old man turned to the younger Kage and said, "And if Sasuke were to arrive late at a battlefield, his comrades would be dead. I cannot allow such behavior to be seen. It makes my ninja seem incompetent. I will allow the Uchiha to fight at a later date, but he will not receive promotion." The Kaze Kage nodded as he heard that. From the corner of his eyes the Hokage could see a dark smirk form under the man's mask, one that he remembered all too well. The old man made a discreet sign and a few Onbu moved into the arena as discreetly as possible. A Chunin came down and whispered something into Genma's ear. The Senbone chewing man nodded and announced, "The battle between Gaara of the Desert and Sasuke Uchiha will be postponed. However, due to his tardiness the Uchiha will not be receiving any promotion." A few of the Uchiha butt-kissers cried out in distaste and anger at hearing that Uchiha wouldn't be getting any promotion. Some of his more insane fangirls made a motion to go up to the cage booth and complain to the old man. That was when one of the more logical ones mentioned that doing so would be suicide when facing their leader. The group immediately stopped after that. "Now then," Genma said as the civilians settled down, "the next match between Sakura Haruno and Temari will begin." Temari and Sakura entered the arena with Temari brandishing her battle fan and Sakura brandishing her nunchaku. Hajime. The pink-haired kunoichi shot forward swinging her weapons. Temari swung her battle fan on ending the fight quickly with a single blast. Sakura simply went through hand signs quickly. Earth style, Earth Shatter Dome. A lot of rocks shot up from the ground and blocked the attack. Sakura then went through more hand signs. Earth style, Stone Spears Assault. The rocks Sakura brought up from the ground sharpened and were sent flying at Temari, who waved her fan again, this time slicing the rocks to pieces. Sakura ran nimbly through the boulders and was upon Temari in an instant. Temari dodged the punch aimed at her face and blocked the sudden kick to her stomach. She was then caught off guard by a right cross to the face that cracked a few teeth. This was one of Temari's flaws. While she was great at mid to long range combat, her close-up fighting was not that effective. Sakura jumped back and Temari fell into her hands. As soon as Temari's fan opened up, Sakura shot forward with green chakra forming on her hands. Chakra scalpel. As soon as Sakura's hand made contact with the fan, the whole thing was ripped apart with a huge slice going through the paper and almost slicing. Sakura then brandished her nunchuka and slammed the pair of weapons into Temari's stomach, making the woman double over in pain. She was sent skyward by a powerful knee strike to the face and was then grabbed by the throat and slammed on the ground with a loud crash. Sakura then got on top of Temari and stomped down on her head, knocking her out. Winner, Sakura Haruno. There was cheering from the village. They were dominating this tournament. Kankuro was looking down at the arena in shock at seeing his older sister being beaten so easily. Apparently the village wasn't as lame as he had been led to believe. He was really hoping the plan went well after this. Sakura's parents were looking down in pride at their little girl. The next match between Kankuro and Shino Aburame will now begin, Genma announced. Kankuro thought, crud. I'm not supposed to show my puppet Aster Jutsu until after Gaara's match. Curse that arrogant duck-haired prick. Somewhere else the Uchiha sneezed. Kankuro looked out over the ring and said, Proctor, I withdraw. The entire arena let out cries of outrage and some started yelling at Kankuro, telling him that he shouldn't have even shown up today. A few even made clown references to the guy, making him burn in rage. Well then, Genma said, the next match between Shikamaru Nara and Sakura Haruno will now begin. While Sakura was heading down to the ring, Shikamaru was considering withdrawing. At least he was, until Shino snuck up behind him and pushed him over the railing of the booth and sent him down into the arena. Everyone looked at the boy, who said, you didn't see anything. Down in the arena the fight began and was pretty one-sided. Being a Nara, Shikamaru had this strange fear of women. As soon as the match began, he immediately began dodging every last attack that Sakura threw at him. Sakura seemed to pick up on this and even sent a few chakra scalpels his way to freak him out. I withdraw, the Nara heir yelled. I withdraw. Just get this troublesome woman to stop. Sakura stopped punching, but then sent the man flying upward by a powerful kick to the chin, sending him flying. Shikamaru hit the ground knocked out. While he was a dark Korra was seen up from the boy's mother Yoshino. Just as the Nara was taken off the field to check for brain damage, there was a large surge of wind and in a torrent of leaves Kakashi and Sasuke appeared. Sasuke was now wearing all black with bandages around his arms and legs. Are we late? Kakashi asked, smiling. Genma answered, yes you are. Your match was postponed and the Uchiha has been denied promotion due to his tardiness. Sasuke heard that and instantly fumed. How dare the old man keep him from being promoted to Chunin? The Uchiha then calmed down and thought that when he showed his supreme skill, then the old man would change his mind and give him the rank that he truly deserves. He was cut off from his self-praising thoughts as Gaara appeared in a swirl of sand. Alright, Genma said, the match between Gaara of the Desert and Sasuke Uchiha can finally begin. Contestants ready? Hajime. The cork on Gaara's gourd popped off, instantly shot off, and the sand inside of it formed a clone of Gaara. Sasuke vanished from sight and slammed into the clone, making it burst into small pieces. Gaara gasped as he remembered his fight with Lee. In the stands, Guy asked, how did Sasuke learn my style so fast, Kakashi? His bloodline was sealed. Kakashi answered, I tied a bunch of rocks to his hands and legs and made him run laps. Guy did seem a little upset since he had still stolen his style instead of learning it in a sense. In the arena, Gaara was getting clobbered by a bunch of punches from Sasuke. Eventually Gaara formed a dome of sand around him. Sasuke slammed his fist into the dome only to find himself cradling an injured hand and bleeding knuckles. Sasuke then jumped backwards and ran up the wall of the arena using chakra. The boy then went through hand signs for a jutsu that Naruto immediately recognized. The blonde ran over to Kakashi, ripped the book out of his hands, and then lifted him up into the air with absolute rage burning in his eyes. "You taught him that jutsu? Are you insane?" Naruto yelled. Kakashi looked nervous and said, "He's facing that Gaara psychopath. He is going to need all the help he can get." Naruto slammed Kakashi into the wall and yelled, "He may be going against a psychopath, but that is still no reason to teach a Jonin with a slightly unstable mind an assassination jutsu." Upon hearing that, Ino, who was nearby, asked, "An assassination jutsu?" Naruto dropped Kakashi and said, "That technique is called the Chidori. A jutsu based on the Rasengan used by my father. The technique focuses chakra into his hand and allows the user to plunge it into someone. The only problem is that Sasuke needs to see the target to use it." Sasuke then launched himself down and called out, "Chidori." The lightning attack pierced the dome and hit something. Sasuke felt a warm liquid ooze over his hand and knew he had hit Gaara. "What is this?" Gaara asked. "Blood? Blood. My blood. You made me bleed." A deformed arm shot out and swatted Sasuke away like a fly. Sasuke looked at the dome and saw through the hole he made there was a yellow eye with 4 diamonds in the iris. At that moment white feathers started to fall down around the arena and the cage booth exploded into smoke. Immediately Anbu burst out of nowhere into the arena and released the civilians from the Genjutsu that had taken them. Naruto grinned and said, "Let the games begin." Omake. Alternate Gaara fight. When the dome of sand formed around Gaara, Sasuke pulled out the powerful technique Naruto taught him, fire style, flame pellet. The marble-sized ball of fire hit the dome with little force and exploded. Very weakly, I might add. There was a deep silence and a wind blew through the area. Gaara burst from his dome and yelled, "You dare insult me with such a weak technique? Die!" Sasuke was then violently crushed to death by Gaara. A brief funeral was held, and since no one could think of anything good to say, the process was short. Sasuke didn't really have a lot of money to be buried because Itachi took the clan finances when he left the village, so Sasuke was just thrown in a random hole and buried. He would have gotten support from his fangirls, but after the weak jutsu his support fell, fangirls included. Orochimaru eventually died due to his inability to find a good host body, so he eventually died out. His powers went to Kabuto, now called Kabutomaru, but with the pedo snake's brain in his head the guy went mad and killed himself in a deluded fit of madness. Itachi heard of what happened to his brother and, in private, laughed himself to death. All in all, Sasuke was more useful to the village in death than in life. Cut. Okay, that's pretty much it for now. The invasion has begun and Sasuke will most likely die at the end of this. Let me know what you think. See you next time. Chapter 10, Show of Power. Naruto vs Orochimaru. Anbu and Ninja shot out from the stands and clashed with each other. Ninja from Suna, Ato, and Konoha clashed into one another in kunai, shuriken, jutsu, basically every other battle-worthy thing they could. Kakashi blocked a kunai from a sound ninja before slamming another kunai into his head. Anka launched a few snakes from her sleeves, tying up a few of the sand and sound nin before they sank their fangs into their necks, poisoning them. Kurama used a few genjutsu and caught a few of her targets into them. A few seconds later they collapsed to the ground with drool coming out of their mouths. Asuma was slicing through his targets with his trench knives. The wind chakra-covered blades cut through them like knives through butter. Guy was going crazy on his enemies. The man was plowing through them one by one, bouncing from one opposing nin to another using his deadly fists and feet. Each impact felt like sledgehammers to whoever he hit. Suddenly a large group of sound ninja appeared in front of them and charged at all the jonin. Naruto suddenly jumped down in front of them with Ice Tiger drawn, his left eye blue, and his right eye green. Cold air collected around the sword's blade as Naruto yelled, "Blade of Frozen Wind." Naruto swung the sword and the blade launched a large crescent-shaped chakra blade. The wave sliced through the enemy ninja in front of them and formed a layer of frost on the fresh corpses and the ground and walls. "Whoa," Asuma said, "when did he learn to do that?" Naruto then turned his head toward the large box of dark chakra that covered roof of the cage booth. Naruto sealed away his sword and unsealed his staff. The blonde then turned toward Kakashi and growled, "Kakashi, go get your runaway student. I saw him running after the siblings from Suna. Stop that little runt before he gets killed." Kakashi nodded before running off. Naruto then shot off towards the box and ran up the side of the arena before he reached the top. Naruto's eyes turned brown and chakra flashed around the iron weights at the end of his staff. Naruto jumped up in front of a fat man with a red mohawk and shouted as he slammed the weapon down on the tile. The impact shook the roof and the tile cracked before it broke and shattered beneath the blow. As it broke, the fat man fell screaming to the ground and hit the ground below with a loud crunch as it shattered his bones. The field that surrounded the roof dimmed away and the field was completely exposed. The four Anbu that stood on the outside of the field ran in with their weapons drawn to attack Orochimaru. Naruto roared, "Don't come any closer. His head is mine." Orochimaru chuckled and said, "Like you can try and beat me, boy. You may have gotten me before, but you just got me by surprise. Now I'll be sure to kill you." Naruto smirked and said, "Come on then. You go, old man. I'll take care of this snake in the grass." The old man was hesitant, but he nodded and ran off. "I don't care if I have to kill you to get to the old man," the snake Sannin said. "I will kill him today." Naruto smirked as he poked his thumb on the bronze spikes on the bottom of his staff. He then slammed it on the ground. Summoning Jutsu, Tortoise, Dragon, Phoenix. Smoke covered the young Jonin. When it cleared, a red serpentine eastern dragon, a large black tortoise with a green shell, and a medium-sized red and white phoenix. Naruto pointed his thumb behind him and said, "Take care of these knuckleheads, I got the big man." The three beasts moved towards the remaining sound ninja that surrounded Orochimaru. Naruto glared at Orochimaru, who looked shocked at Naruto summoning three animals all at once. His face quickly returned to normal. "So you have a few new tricks, boy," Orochimaru said with a smirk. Orochimaru's mouth opened wide before a snake slithered out of his oral cavity. The snake opened his mouth and a sword slipped out of the snake's mouth. Orochimaru took the sword into his hand. Naruto quickly sealed away his staff and unsealed Ice Tiger. "You can't beat me, boy," the snake Sannin said. Naruto pointed his weapon at the Sannin's face and said, "Less talking, more killing." Naruto charged at the snake Sannin with impressive speed. The snake man blocked the attack with a loud clang. The two then started to exchange blows repeatedly with loud clangs. The sound of their battle echoed through the arena and the ground beneath them started to crack from the force of their blows. After 3 minutes of swinging, the group stood at a stalemate, struggling to gain a leg up on the other. "Is this the best you got, you legless iguana?" Naruto growled. "In your dreams, the snake Sannin, even if I die the leaf will fall." Naruto growled, "You will never beat this village or the old man, you monster." Orochimaru said, "Suna brought the monster." Naruto applied chakra to his sword, sending a wave of cold air. The man jumped back as the cold feeling made his hands sting. The boy's fist slammed into the snake Sannin's jaw and sent him rolling. Naruto roared in fury as he charged, swing his ice-cold weapon. Meanwhile, Sasuke called out in pain when he was slammed into a tree. He looked up to see Gaara, who had transformed into a miniature version of the Shukaku with only his feet being unaffected. "You will die here, Uchiha," the young Sunagenin roared furiously with insanity visible in his eyes. Gaara's mutated hand shot out and wrapped around Sasuke and it started to apply ILTF pressure. Sasuke called out in pain as he felt his bones started to be crushed under the pressure of Gaara's giant hand. Gaara would have made the boy's head pop off like a bottle cap if someone hadn't intervened. Rasengan. A spiral ball of chakra slammed into the boy's face, knocking him back and slamming him through a tree. The Sanjin Shuriki dropped Sasuke down on his back and looked up to see a man in kabuki clothes with long white hair. Gaara snarled and yelled, "How dare you get in my way? I'll kill you too." Sand flowed around Gaara before he suddenly burst in size, growing incredibly large in size. In his place stood the Ichibi no Shukaku. The old man cut his thumb and went through a few hand signs. Summoning Jutsu, a large plume of smoke shot up and covered the area around him. When it cleared, it revealed a huge toad about the size of Shukaku wearing a robe with a sword on his waist. "Jiraiya, you old lecher," the toad shouted, obviously angry, "why have you summoned me this time?" Jiraiya said, "Sorry to disturb you, Game Ubuntu, but I need some help with this guy." The large toad looked at Hyde, a large raccoon, and said, "Shukaku of the desert, why do you always get me in these troublesome situations?" In the village, Shikamaru and his old man sneezed before getting back to the fight. Back with Naruto, Orochimaru dodged another swing of the sword from Naruto only to receive a powerful kick to the face. As he stumbled to gut slashed across the chest and get a punch to the face. Orochimaru wasn't doing so well. He didn't expect Naruto to get so much stronger in just a month. So far he had been slashed, frozen, and knocked around. Whenever he summoned his snakes to attack, the cold nature of his sword caused them to back off due to their cold-blooded nature. Orochimaru also made a mistake underestimating the boy's speed. Whenever he made a motion to do hand signs, the boy seemed to see it coming and swung at him, intent on taking a limb. Orochimaru blocked another strike from Naruto's sword and swung out a kick with a loud crack as it knocked the kusanagi out of his hand. Naruto then unleashed a vicious right hook, left jab, and a right uppercut. "Here you die, Snake Man," Nawat snarled. Naruto slammed his fist into Orochimaru's jaw and knocked him off his feet. Both of Naruto's eyes flashed green before he roared, "Hurricane Blade!" Naruto swung his sword in a vertical arc with a swing, and a huge gash and a splash of blood was sent outward as Orochimaru screamed in pain. The two halves of Orochimaru lay on the ground before a huge white snake burst from the upper portion wrapped around Naruto, immobilizing him. The snake sage then proceeded to sink his teeth into Naruto's neck. Naruto cried out in pain before black ink started to form on Naruto's neck. The dots formed a chain in a circle pattern with a flame image in the middle. The curse mark of hell? The snake Sanin thought, "This boy really is interesting. With a bloodline like his I could become more powerful than ever if I use his body. Then there's the extra boost of the Bijuu's chakra. He'll seek me out eventually. For now though I'd better retreat." Before the white snake could even begin to move, he suddenly cried out in pain as lightning surged through him. Naruto's eyes burned white as he glared at the snake that bound him. The young Jonin grabbed the snake's head before ripping him off his person and slamming him down. Naruto then threw him away. As Orochimaru's snake form lay on the ground twitching from the electric current, Naruto's left eye turned blue while the right one turned green. Naruto ignored the burning pain in the side of his neck. The blonde then drew back his fist as ice-cold wind focused on the appendage. Ice style, ultimate technique, Howl of Fenrir. Naruto shot forward with a trail of ice following him. Orochimaru reverted back to his old form just in time for Naruto's fist to hit his chest and go straight through it. Orochimaru could only gasp as ice covered him, freezing him solid. Naruto then lifted the insane man off the ground before slamming him onto the ground. Orochimaru's frozen body shattered into millions of pieces. Naruto slowly stumbled and fell to the ground. As he did, red chakra slowly covered his body and focused on the curse mark on his neck. A few Anbu jumped down and lifted the boy up before rushing off to the hospital. Meanwhile, in Naruto's mind, Naruto looked around to find himself in the middle of vast forest. Naruto looked around for a few minutes before he heard something. "Come to me, boy. We have much to discuss." Despite his better judgment, Naruto followed the voice. He was shocked when he found himself in the middle of a large clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a large crimson-red fox with a collar around its neck that had the kanji for seal. What got Naruto's attention were the 9 long tails that swayed to and fro behind it. "So you're my jailer," the fox said. "I was actually expecting someone much older." Naruto gripped his sword and said, "QB, I presume." The fox seemed to chuckle and said, "Yes. QB is just my title, however. Call me Kurama." Naruto looked up at the large animal and said, "What do you want with me?" QB raised his head and said, "Straight to the point." "Good. It involves what that slimy serpent did to you right before you killed him." Naruto looked at him and said, "The curse mark." The 9-tailed demon nodded. "The curse mark seems to be an outdated seal that contains special enzymes that increase aggression in the victim and can cause unpredictable transformations. The problem is that this can cause damage to the brain and eventually drive somebody to madness." Naruto looked shocked before asking, "So you're going to get rid of it?" The fox shook his head and said, "No, child. I'm going to improve it." Naruto gasped and yelled, "What?" The fox chuckled and said, "That seal is sucking up my chakra quickly. The seal already on you is transferring my chakra into yours after purifying it. If this keeps up, I will disappear from the world. If I'm going to die, I might as well do something before I kick the bucket. So just sit back, relax, and let me do all the work." The Kyuubi then unleashed a loud roar that actually seemed to knock Naruto out. In the real world, it put Naruto into a coma. Kurama simply laid his head down and slept as he felt his chakra slowly being drained away. Chapter 11, Training Trip. It had been a few weeks since Naruto had slain Orochimaru. Word had spread quickly about Orochimaru's death, and the Sound Forces quickly surrendered when they heard of their master's death at the hands of Naruto. Kabuto had been captured and taken into custody. The little punk, however, took the coward's way out and took a suicide pill hidden in his teeth. The bodies of the Sound Four were discovered badly beaten and dead. The entire medical staff got to work to see if they could decipher anything about the Sound Village. They took special interests in the curse marks that they had. Speaking of curse marks, Naruto had woken up from his coma after the fight with Orochimaru after a week. Naruto found that the curse mark didn't seem to bother him as much as it did when the snake pedophile bit him during the battle. After his waking, he was given a Medal of Honor for his performance. Out of the invasion, all the Genin managed to come out unharmed. Well, most of them managed to come out unharmed. Sasuke had his legs broken in the fight with Gaara. Fortunately or unfortunately, depends on your point of view, the doctors were able to fix the Uchiha's legs and they said he would be able to walk by the end of the week and train by the end of the month. Sakura, and Shikamaru were given promotion to Chunin for their skills shown in the finals and in the invasion. While Ami and Sakura were excited, Shikamaru was bummed because this would mean more work and responsibility. Though, it did get his mother off his back. Meanwhile, things hadn't been going well with Naruto. Some of the villagers' old hate was starting to come back. Naruto figured it was because of his curse mark had been seen by a few nurses when he was in the hospital. Stupid civilian nurses. Anyway, the villagers were beginning to look at him with scorn again. They figured that Naruto would probably go crazy and leave the village like Orochimaru did, much like they did with Anko. Naruto also speculated that this was due to the fact that Naruto had grown powerful and the civilian council didn't have any control over him. Naruto walked to the Hokage tower and entered the office. The boy was surprised to see Tsume in there as well as the old man. "You called for me, old man?" Naruto asked. The old Kage said, "Sit down, Naruto. We have much to discuss." Naruto sat down in front of the desk next to his girlfriend. "Naruto," the old man said, "I noticed that some of the villagers' old hate is returning. I can only wonder why this is happening." Tsume answered, "Because Naruto is strong and they don't have him under their thumb like they want the strong people in the village, and Naruto got a curse mark from that snake freak that dared leave a hickey on my man." The old man looked at her and said, "In a nutshell, yes." Naruto sighed and said, "So what are we going to do? I swear if the villagers try to start beating on me again, heads are really going to roll." The old man said, "I know this. That is why I've gotten a little training trip idea for you." Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, "A training trip?" The Kage looked at Naruto with stern eyes and said, "Yes. You see, Naruto, I have a source that has told me about a group of S-rank criminals called the Akatsuki. The group is apparently interested in the containers of the bijou. Giving your status as a Jinchuriki, this makes you a target." Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, "So what, you want me to train out of the village and grow stronger?" The old man nodded and said, "Yes. I've arranged for you to have a teacher to help you. He might even be able to help you with sage arts given you have 4 summons. I've been meaning to ask, where did you get those?" Naruto said, "I found them in a tree in the Forest of Death. They told me of something bad happening. They said that there was a madman trying to take over the world. You think the Akatsuki might have something to do with this?" The old man nodded and said, "Yes. Naruto, you need to grow as strong as possible to fight these madmen. For those still decent in this village, take this training trip." Naruto said, "Okay, I'll do it. But I have one condition." The old man raised an eyebrow and said, 1. I want Tsume-chan to come with me. 2. I want to take one of the Jonin with me as well." Tsume asked, "Why would you want me to come with you? Why would you want a Jonin to come as well?" Naruto said, "Because if I get attacked by a fangirl horde, you'll be able to scare them off. Plus, with Hana being the next clan head, she can get some experience running the clan. Besides, you do need to work on your skills so they don't get too rusty and so you can keep this body of yours in check." Naruto pinched his girlfriend's butt, making her let out a cry and blush slightly. Tsume thought for a second and said, "Okay. I'll go with you." Naruto said, "Where is this guy we're supposed to meet?" The old man looked at the clock and said, "Judging by the time, I'd say that he should be at the hot springs by now." Naruto suddenly had a bad feeling come over him. Naruto said, "Let's go, Tsume. I have a feeling this will end painfully for someone." The 2 Jonin got up and left. As they did, Sarutobi said, "Jiraiya, you are going to be in a lot of pain." A few minutes later at the Konoha hot springs, Naruto and Tsume arrived and instantly saw something that they didn't like. An old man wearing kabuki clothes with long white hair and a band on his head that had the kanji for oil was standing in front of the girl's side of the hot spring, scribbling down on a notepad. Tsume was about to go and claw the man to death when Naruto stopped her. He slowly snuck up behind the pervert with a devious grin. Naruto's eyes turned brown and green. His foot flashed brown with chakra and wind flowed around it. Naruto drew back his foot and yelled, "Stop peeping on the girls, you damn pervert." The old man was sent flying into the air and crashed down on the female side of the spring. Almost immediately the sound of impacts and screams of agony were heard. "Ouch! Ow! No, that doesn't go there." A few minutes later the girl's screams died down and the old man was thrown over the wall, a bloody beaten mess. After a couple of seconds the man jumped up and brushed himself off as if nothing had actually happened. "Okay, who kicked me?" the man asked angrily. Naruto said, "That would me, you old pervert." The man turned to Naruto and Tsume before yelling, "I am not a mere pervert. I am an artist who is inspired by the youth and beauty of this generation." Naruto cocked his head to the side and said, "In other words, you're a super pervert." The man's face faulted so hard that his face was imprinted on the concrete. "Anyway," Naruto said, "my name is Naruto Uzumaki Namix. The old man said I was to meet you here about a training trip." The old man picked himself up from the ground and said, "My name is Jiraiya. I've heard some crazy stuff about you through the grapevine. Would you and your lady friend here tell me which is fact and fiction?" Later at Ikaruka Ramen, Jiraiya's eyes were wide as the ramen bowls that sat in front of him. Tsume and Kuramaru, who recently joined them for food, were also wide-eyed. "The 4 legendary summon," the white-haired man said, "and I thought that they were just a myth. Naruto said, "Trust me. I thought I was crazy too when I first saw them. I thought it was just some crazy dream at first." Tsume whistled and said, "Now I'm really glad I'm dating you." Naruto said, "So what will we be learning on this trip of ours?" Jiraiya said, "Well, we can learn sage arts, ninjutsu, and senjutsu or sage art. I'm sure something like that will come in great handy for you in the future." Naruto glanced at the man and said, "Okay. Tsume-chan is coming with us though. You try to hit on her and I will tear out your insides and serve you to the wolves." Jiraiya gulped loudly and nodded. Naruto's look changed as he said, "We leave tomorrow. Now I suggest that we get ready to leave. You might want to go pack and give the news to your clan." Tsume nodded before getting up and kissing Naruto's cheek. Jiraiya said as Tsume left, "You don't have to worry about me flirting with your girlfriend, kid. I don't go for a woman like that." Naruto turned to the man and said, "Are you saying my girl is ugly?" Jiraiya stuttered and tried to save himself as Naruto's eyes turned brown. Jiraiya was later found with multiple broken bones, a few minor lacerations tied to a post in the middle of the town square with his own underwear, which was stained with urine, stuffed into his mouth. Later, Naruto was walking to his clan compound when he was suddenly tapped on the shoulder. The boy turned around to see a Hyuga standing behind him. "Yes, Hyuga-san?" Naruto asked. The Hyuga bowed and said, "Namikaze-sama, Lord Hiyashi has asked for your presence." Naruto nodded and followed the man to the Hyuga manor. Once inside, he led Naruto to his office and told him that Hiyashi would be with him momentarily. A few minutes later, Hiyashi entered the room. Through his calm facade, Naruto was able to sense an underlying hint of anger. "You called for me, Hiyashi-sama?" Naruto asked. Hiyashi sat down and said, "Yes. There is an issue going on with my clan involving my daughter, Hinata." Naruto looked at the man with interest. Hiyashi continued, "It seems that the Hyuga elders want to put Hinata through a test to see if she is worthy of being clan heiress. The problem is the fight is against her sister Hanabi, and with Hinata's gentle nature, well, you can guess how it will go." Naruto nodded. He knew the young Hyuga from what he read from her file. She was a gentle girl. She was almost too gentle for her own good. She would never dream of harming her little sister. Hiyashi continued, "If she loses, she will be stripped of status as clan heiress, be branded with the caged bird seal, and banished to the branch family. If that happens, I'll lose her. I'll lose what little bit I have left to remember my dear wife." Naruto said, "You want me to train her like I did Sakura and Emi, don't you?" The man nodded and said, "Yes. You help two civilian girls become strong enough to take on a prodigy and the daughter of a cage. Please, help me save my daughter from a horrible fate." Naruto thought for a second and said, "I am going on a training trip tomorrow. I guess I could bring her along with me. It will allow us to train away from prying eyes. Of course I will need your approval on this." In a matter of seconds, Hiyashi had the document printed, signed, stamped, and made official. "You work fast when you want to," Naruto said, shocked. He took the paper and signed his name. "There," Naruto said, "inform your daughter and tell the council. We'll be leaving in the morning." The following morning, Naruto stood at the village gates. With him were Jiraiya, Tsume, and a very nervous-looking Hinata. As they started to leave, they were approached by Hiyashi. "Hinata," he said, "there are two things I wish for you to do when you are gone with Naruto." Hinata stuttered, "Yes, father?" The man said, "1. Don't change while you're gone. 2. When you come back, beat some humility into your little sister. She's becoming more and more like the Uchiha every day." Hinata giggled a bit. Naruto whispered, "Did Hiyashi just make a joke?" Tsume answered, "I believe he did." Jiraiya said, "Come on, kid. We got a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it." With that, the four left. It would be 3 long years before they would be seen again by anyone in Konoha. Chapter 12, Return and Hyuga Beating. 3 years had passed since Naruto had gotten a curse mark and left with his girlfriend Tsume and with Hinata. The trio traveled the elemental nations, meeting a lot of people and even saving a village or two. While training, Naruto got used to his curse mark when he turned it on and off. It turns out the curse mark made it much easier for Naruto to control the purified version of Kyuubi's chakra. This also allowed Naruto to access all the tailed forms easily. Despite the easiness, it turns out the extra strain from the superpowered chakra actually caused Naruto to become exhausted, especially if he went all the way to the 9-tailed form. He could also access his own curse mark form. He also got to work on making his own versions of the Rasengan and working on a way to improve the Hiroshin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique. Tsume got her own training as well. When Naruto got her affinity, which was fire, he taught her some new fresh-made jutsu that only she would know. She also taught her some special moves to use in case Kurama wasn't around. Speaking of the dog, he was also given some impressive jutsu when Naruto asked about it. Hinata got her one little tricks as well. The girl's affinity was actually lightning, which was strange considering that the normal Hyuga affinity was earth. Naruto effectively taught the girl a few of his own lightning jutsu as well as a few special techniques that were a mix of lighting techniques and the Juken style. He even taught her how to combine the Juken and the hummingbird style. While traveling, the group ran into an old weaponsmith, emphasis on the word old. They were amazed the old-timer could lift up a hammer. They were shocked to find out that this old man was in fact, the man who forged the swords that belonged to the 7 swordsmen of the mist. When the 3 ninjas saved his village from a horde of bandits, he decided to reward them by forging special weapons. With permission from his summons, the old man actually broke down Naruto's 4 weapons and combined them into a one long sword. The 4 weapons combined to form a new more powerful weapon. It was a specialized long sword that had a long black blade that had a black serpent tied around the hilt acting as a guard. The black blade had the kanji for dragon, phoenix, tortoise, and tiger in white on the blades. The old man also used an old forging technique that allowed Naruto to cause the sword to shape-shift when he used a specific verbal command. Other similar allowed him to use powerful techniques without hand signs. Kuramaru got a specialized dagger that went on a sheath on his shoulder and could be wielded in his teeth. This also acted as an enhancement for one of his giant drill techniques. On top of that, when a dog focused his chakra into his mouth, the chakra would cause the blade to extend, making this dog very dangerous. Tsume got a special type of gloves. The woman got a special pair of normal leather gloves. When chakra would focus, the leather would gain the effectiveness of metal. Then fingers would gain iron claws and become very effective when used with her usual taijutsu style. As for Hinata, the old man wasn't able to find anything that would suit her. He had already forged a weapon that used lightning chakra, and he swore on his father's grave that he would never create the same kind of weapon twice. He did tell her that the man who had it was in an old mining village. They went to the village and were surprised to see the village was taken over by a missing nin by the name of Ryuga. They fought and freed the village from the funeral-obsessed madmen, and Hinata took his swords to use as her own. They also found that there was a young child named Ranmaru who had a special pair of eyes that could cast a powerful illusion that even the Byakugan couldn't see through. They left the child in the care of an old woman who ran a curry shop. After that, the group continued their training. Finally, after 3 long years, they were returning to Konoha, with a little extra baggage. Konoha's front gate. "I spy with my little eye," Kotetsu started but was interrupted by Izumo. "Enough with that stupid game already." The Chunin yelled, "There isn't anything around here to spy except tree, grass, and the occasional squirrel." The man said, "Wait, I got something this time. I spy something that starts with H." Izumo said, "I don't know, a hog?" Izumo's fellow Chunin answered, "Nope, hot blonde woman." Izumo looked at Kotetsu strangely until he pointed and saw that there were some very familiar people approaching. It was Naruto, Tsume, and Hinata. Their physical appearances had changed. Tsume had gotten a new black shirt with a gray jacket and long tight pants that actually worked for her style. She also had her new pair of gloves on. By her side was Kuramaru, who had a sheath with his dagger still there. Naruto had gotten a new black leather jacket with the kanji for earth, water, fire, lightning, and wind and hat order on his sleeve. On his back was a large kanji symbol for the element sage that had the image of a tortoise, a dragon, a tiger, and a phoenix on his back. What got their attention was what was on his hip. It was a long sword that had a black serpent wrapped around his sword. Hinata was walking with them. The pair of Chunin could tell by the way she walked that she had more confidence than before. Her hair had grown much longer down to her lower back. She wore a shit shirt and a short jacket that showed her slightly larger than normal chest. She also had some long jeans and some sandals. On her back was a pair of dual swords that had a long point on the blade close to the hilt, and another one close to the top. There were 3 other people that they didn't know. The first girl wore an orange clip in her short, spiky mint green hair that matched her eye color, which was also orange. Her outfit consisted of a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. She also carried a cylindrical object in red wrapping on her back. The second girl had long, straight, blonde, hair bound with taut bandages and dark eyes. She wore a short-sleeved black and purple blouse, black pants, both of which had a design similar to clouds on them, purple fingerless gloves, and a chain of white beads wound around her left hand. She also had on a pair of sandals and kunai holster which was strapped to her right thigh. She also wore bandages around her arms and legs as well as a red belt around her waist. The final girl was riding on Naruto's shoulder. It was a little girl of about 3 or 4 years of age. She had mint green hair and pale skin. She had a pair of blue eyes like Naruto's and wore a little red dress that had butterflies on it. The group approached them and said, "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Tsume and Zuka, and Hinata Hyuga, returning from a 3-year training trip with these 3." The 2 Chunin said, "Papers." Naruto presented his forms and handed them to the 2 Chunin. With that they got into the village. When they entered they were immediately hit with looks from the villagers. A few of the girls were looking at Naruto with lust and wanting in their eyes. They also gave squeals happy looks toward the little girl on Naruto's shoulder. The men were giving angry looks at Naruto for getting the girls' attention and were giving lustful looks at the girls who were with them. While the older men were looking at Tsume while the teenagers were looking at Hinata, the green-haired girl, and the blonde girl with lust. The older men may have been entranced by beauty, but they wouldn't hit on a girl that much younger than them. When they arrived at the Hokage's office they were shocked to see, not the old man, but a young blonde, well-endowed woman sitting at the desk. With the woman was a young woman with black hair, a black gi, and had a pig at her feet. The little girl on Naruto's shoulder squealed before jumping down and grabbed the animal and started to cuddle it. "I take it you're Naruto," the woman said. Naruto answered, "Yes. Who are you?" The blonde said, "My name is Tsunade Senju. The black-haired girl is my assistant Shizune, and the pig currently being cuddled to death is Tuntun. Old man Sarutobi retired a while back and I took his place. He's currently spent his time helping his son, Asuma, train his grandson Konohamaru." The pig let out a pleased oink as the little girl scratched her at the right spot behind the ear. "I know who you three are," Tsunade said. "What I don't know is who you three are." She motioned to the three new people in the room. The little girl finally let Tuntun go, much to the pig's relief as it was getting very hard to breathe. The green-haired girl said, "My name is Fu, formerly of Takigakour, Hidden Waterfall. I'm here with Naruto-kun to join Konoha." The blonde said, "My name is Yugito Ni, formerly of Kumagakour, Hidden Cloud. I'm here to join Konoha as well." The little girl turned and said, "My name is Kira. I'm just traveling with my mommy and daddy." Tsunade looked at the girl and then turned to Naruto and Fu to see the collection of their appearance and immediately connected the dots. "Can somebody explain this?" she asked in a calm voice. Naruto turned to Shizune and said, "Hey Shizune, right? Would you mind taking Kira to the park? I think it would be a good idea for her to get out a little bit." Shizune walked over to the little girl and held out a hand. Kira looked nervously at the stranger before looking at her daddy. Naruto nodded and said, "Don't worry. She's okay." Kira reluctantly took Shizune's hand and walked out with her to the park. Tsunade said, "Could you explain to me why it is you have a little girl with you and these two?" Naruto said, "Well, it started when we came across Takigakour. You see, the village's leader, Shibuki, was being attacked by a bunch of missing ninja who wanted to take a treasure from their village called the Hero's Water. We came in and saved them. When that happened I was given the royal treatment by Fu here. Kira-chan was a result." When that happened, Tsume scowled and turned away from Fu with a deep scowl. "Are you still upset about that?" Fu asked. "You captured my boyfriend and then used him," Tsume said. "Yes, I'm still angry. You're just lucky that your daughter brought out my maternal instincts and that she is so adorable." Fu scowled. Naruto continued, "Unfortunately there was an unexpected problem. You see, Fu was the Genkariki in the village and she was almost killed by a mob for corrupting the village's new hero. We managed to get her out of there before something really bad happened. About a year later we had Kira-chan. Fu didn't want to leave her baby, so, after getting permission to leave from Shibuki, who happened to be her cousin, she came with us." Naruto glanced at Tsume who just shook her head a little bit annoyed. "What's wrong with her?" Tsunade asked, seeing the woman angry. "She's just angry because she can't give any adorable babies to Naruto-kun," Yugito teased, making the woman flare. "Before a catfight begins," Tsunade said, "why are you so far away from Kumo?" Yugito said, "It started back in Kumo. You see, I'm the Jinchuriki of the two-tailed demon cat. The council in my village found out about Naruto's strength, summons, and bloodline. In their infinite wisdom, they sent me on a seduction mission to get Naruto and take his seed to my village to start a clan of element controllers. Naruto proceeded to beat me on my butt. He went to Kumo and told the Raikage, who sees me like a niece, and told him about it. He tore the council a new one since I could have been killed or captured by some crazy nut jobs. He allowed me to leave with Naruto-kun knowing that I would be happier away from the village because some of the people there do want me dead." Tsunade said, "Why do you want to join the village?" Yugito answered, "For one thing, we want to stay close to Naruto-kun. Second, I don't want to deal with the council morons back in Kumo." Fu said, "Ditto." Tsunade said, "Okay. I'll send the Raikage and the leader of Taki a letter to see if it is okay for you to stay here. For now, as per procedure, I'm going to have to put you under Anbu guard for about a month before I let you two go on missions. Now I suggest that you go get Kira from the park because seeing as how some of the girls in this village are with adorable things, you might want to get her before she gets kidnapped." Naruto's eyes widened when he heard that and vanished in a flash of yellow. "Was that what I thought it was?" Tsunade asked. All the girls present nodded. In Konoha's main park, Naruto appeared in the park in a flash of yellow. He looked around a little panicked and sighed in relief when he saw his little girl playing in a nearby sandbox with Shizune watching her like a hawk. Kira looked up and yelled, "Daddy!" The little girl jumped up into Naruto's arms giggling, making Naruto laugh. He hefted her onto her shoulder. "Where are we going now, Daddy?" she asked. Naruto answered, "We need to go to Hinata Obasan's house. She needs to take a very important test." Kira nodded before they headed toward the Hyuga manor. As they went they were met by Hinata. "Where are the others?" Naruto asked. Hinata answered, "Sume-san went to her clan compound to see if it is still in one piece. Yugito and Fu went to your clan compound, led by Anbu, to check the place out and to relax after the long journey." Naruto said, "Now then, let's go crack some heads." Kira giggled and walked with Naruto and Hinata to the clan compound. When the three entered, Kira was almost kidnapped by a few other Hyuga women. After that incident was over, Kira was given to a caretaker and was sent to play with some of the other Hyuga toddlers. Naruto made sure to keep an eye on her by sending a shadow clone that was transformed into a stuffed fox that Kira took with her. When they entered the training room they were greeted by Hiyashi, Hanabi, Neji, and all 10 members of the Hyuga Council. "Welcome back, Hinata," Hiyashi said. "How was your trip?" Hinata smiled and said, "Very interesting, To-san." The head of the Hyuga Council said, "Enough idle chatter. Hinata Hyuga. You have been summoned here to test your abilities to see if you are worthy of the title of heiress. You shall fight your younger sister Hanabi to see if you are worthy." Hinata said, "No. I won't fight my sister, nor will I fight Neji-san." The council grinned. If she didn't fight, then that meant that her title was forfeit and she would be sent to the branch family where a weakling like her belonged. Hinata pointed at the council and said, "I'll fight you, all of you." The council was shocked. They hadn't expected this. Neji, Hanabi, and Hiyashi were shocked as well and looked at the girl with a look of complete surprise. The council members stood up and got ready to fight. They were completely ignorant to Hinata's power as she dropped the 2 swords she had on her back and handed them to Naruto. Hinata also took off her jacket and got into her own version of the Juken stance, which was a mix of the Juken stance and the hummingbird style basic stance. The youngest, and most arrogant, of the Hyuga Council said, "Don't worry little girl, I'll make this nice and painless." He charged forward with his Byakugan activated. Hinata hadn't activated hers yet. She aptly dodged the attack before slamming a Juken strike into the man's elbow joint. The man cried out in pain as he felt the joint break. A sudden sweep kick knocked him off his feet. Hinata spun around on her hands and slammed her heel down on the man's head, knocking him out. The remaining 9 members looked on in shock. She had just utterly destroyed a Hyuga Council member in just 3 hits. The remaining 9 members of the council got into their own stances and rushed Hinata. The girl finally activated her Byakugan and got into her own stance. Council member number 2 charged at Hinata and threw a pair of strikes. Hinata dodged 1 strike before sending out a strike to the woman's shoulder. The young girl unleashed a barrage of strikes lightning fast and swung around, kicking her in the face, knocking her back. Council member 3 and 4 charged and tried to use the 64 palms technique, only for Hinata to actually dodge number 3's attack before grabbing number 4's arms before swinging him around like a bat and knocked number 3 to the ground and knocked him out before throwing number 4 into the air and unleashed a fury of Juken strikes that closed his chakra points and knocked him out. Member 5 and 6 tried to attack from the front and back at the same time. Hinata jumped and flipped over number 5, causing them to hit each other and knocked the other out. Number 7 charged and threw flurry of strikes. Hinata countered with her own assault. Hinata's strikes had lighting chakra laced into them and electrocuted the man, knocking him out and burning his hands. Member number 8 charged at her with chakra flowing into his fingers. Jmyuken, Heart Destroyer. Hinata saw this coming and spun around and said, "Lightning style, shocking rotation." The council member's strike met Hinata's electrified chakra dome. The result was a few thousand bolts of electricity through his body and frying his heart. The man fell to the ground smoking slightly. The final member of the council, Hiyashi's grandfather, said, "Neji, the rest of you, come here and help me." Neji said, "That wasn't part of the deal. I won't help you fight my cousin." The old man said, "Too bad." The man then made a ram sign and fell to the ground with extreme pain going through his body. Hinata growled before lightning chakra coursed through her hands and she charged forward. She called out, "Lightning style, Twin Thunder Lions." Hinata's hands ignited with electricity that formed a pair of lion heads that roared angrily. The man then felt the lightning attack pierce his body and sent a lot of bolts right through him. The man cried out in agony as the group of branch members rose up, regaining the feeling in their bodies as the pain washed away. Hanabi looked around her to see the council defeated by the so-called weakling of the Hyuga clan. She turned to Hiyashi and said, "To-san, if Hinata is a weakling, then I want to be a weakling." Chapter 13. Changes over the years and mission. Naruto stood in the middle of his training grounds. He stood in a stance and a crouch with one foot forward with one hand on his sheath and his other hand on the sword handle. Naruto stood in front of a wooden statue. The blonde then whipped out his sword in a blurring motion before he put his sword back in the sheath. There was a silence for a second. Then the statue split vertically and horizontally. The blonde took out an object and looked at the number on it. "Darn it," Naruto said, "it is still half a second too slow." Naruto sighed in frustration. He shrugged off and said, "Well, since I'm alone I might as well get a practice with my special weapons." Naruto sent out a brief chakra pulse to see if there was anyone watching. When he found that no one was around, Naruto grinned before he unsheathed it. He said, "Freeze, Shimodara, Frost Tiger." Naruto's katana shifted forms. Ice formed around the blade and handle. The ice shattered like glass, revealing Japanese longsword. It was pure white with a silver edge. On the blade was the image for a tiger's paw print. A white cloth was wrapped around the hilt and there was an icicle coming off the bottom of the handle. Naruto twirled the blade and stabbed it into the ground. He swung it with ease, sending a wave of frosted wind. Ice quickly formed on the ground where the attack flew, while a tree was frozen solid by the attack itself. Naruto then flicked the blade and all the ice in front of him shattered along with the target itself. Naruto changed his sword back to normal. He then held it out again and said, "Scourge, Funikusu yo Fun, Phoenix Rage." The sword was transformed in a burst of flames to a slightly longer blade than normal katana. It was a red blade with a tsuba that was in the shape of an ember. The handle was black and there was a chain that extended off it for about a foot. Naruto swung the sword up and sent an arc of flames forward that burned a nearby dummy to a crisp. The chain on the bottom actually extended when he swung it and it wrapped around a rock before constricting, destroying it like glass. Naruto then held his sword out and said, "Crash, Umemui, Sea Fury." There was a splash of water and it showed not a sword, but a trident. It was blue with the tree ends of it jagged. The staff was blue with a small jade spearhead on the bottom. The triple point front end was jagged and was also made of jade. The blonde pointed his weapon before stabbing it forward. Water actually condensed and shot forward in a huge plume. The water grouped together forming a ball and collapsed in on itself, crushing the dummy under a lot of pressure. Naruto then held it out and growled, "Roar, Ryuto, Dragon Saber." The weapon erupted white flames before turning into a large Zanbato. The blade of the weapon was large and looked like it was made of scales. Right above where the cleaver-like blade met the handle there was a large oval shape that's silver on the outside and black in the middle. There was also a handguard that resembled a dragon wing. Naruto charged with incredible speed for someone carrying a weapon that was so heavy. The blonde's sword easily sliced through a pair of trees. The black oval opened up to reveal a yellow dragon eyes. The entire blade burst into dragon fire and he swung it hard, sending a wave of the powerful flames spiraling forward. The flames decimated a few trees. Naruto grinned before twirling his sword and changed it back to normal before sheathing it. Naruto looked at the sun and said, "Lunchtime. I might actually run into some of the old gang." Later, Naruto arrived at the Akatsuki barbecue restaurant. He was immediately called at. The blonde turned to see the rookies from the old class sitting there. Naruto walked over and noticed that they all had changed somehow. Ino had filled out a bit and wore an outfit that accentuated that. Kuji had turned into an actual big-boned kid and was wearing red and green samurai-like armor. He also let his hair grow out. Shino had just grown a bit and wore more gray and mysterious outfits than usual. Kiba had grown a tad and he wore a darker version of his old outfit. Akamaru had grown from his smaller size to a large dog big enough for Kiba to ride on his back. Shikamaru hadn't really changed at all. The only major difference was the Chunin flak jacket. Naruto guessed that he thought it was too troublesome to find a new outfit. Tenten had changed her look to a white long-sleeve loose shirt and long black pants. Naruto also noticed that she had a large scroll under her seat. Neji had let his hair grow longer and his outfit mimicked more of the main branch member's outfit, being a white loose and very comfortable from what Naruto could guess. Lee had ditched his old attire, but it was still green though he had a white cloak over it. Sakura had changed into a red shirt that had the image of a fist covered in stone on her back. Her hair was cut shorter and her headband was in her pink hair. She also had a pair of pants that fit like Hanbu pants and some boots. She had on a pair of gloves and her nunchaku was on her waist. Emi had a black shirt that had a lightning bolt in yellow on her back. She also had a pair of Hanbu-style pants and a pair of blue sandals. She also had a pair of gloves, one of which had a few metal pieces no doubt used for pulling her bow. Said weapon was on her back. "Hey guys," Naruto said with a grin. "Naruto-sensei, you're back," Sakura said with a smile. Naruto nodded and sat down before he said, "I have to say you all have grown a lot since I left, especially Akamaru. What is the Inuzuka clan feeding you? So what have I missed over the past 3 years?" The group then told the young Jonin of what had happened over the past 3 years. Most of the rookies had been promoted to Chunin or Jonin rank. Right now Neji and Shikamaru were jonin while the rest were chunin. Neji had his own team that consisted of Konohamaru Asarutobi, Udon, and Moegi, who had called themselves the Konohamaru Ninja Corps. Despite the ridiculous title, they were pretty touch one on C-rank missions thanks to Naruto's early training. They were even calling Konohamaru the second god of shinobi, much to his grandfather's delight. The rookies' training had gotten bumped up as well by their teachers so they could live up to expectations from their students after all of Team 7's bragging of how good Naruto was of a teacher. Hana was made clan head while her mother was out of the village. Kiba had been training himself like crazy. The other clan children had gotten speciatnig from their parents along with the training from their team leaders. When Naruto asked about Sasuke, he received a sour note. Sasuke had tried to make a move on some of the clan daughters, mostly Hana, Ino, Sakura, Emi and Tenten. He kept proposing marriage with his reason being that they were strong and that they would breed strong Uchiha children. The idea was rejected immediately and resulted in comical chases across the village. Apparently after that he went to the Jonin sensei demanding training. When they refused, he went so far as to nearly assault Kurenai. This resulted in a vicious beating. While the boy was recuperating, he decided that Konoha didn't have anything to offer him in terms of power and ran off. In the process he injured and nearly killed a nurse. When they sent a few ninja after him, they found that the ninja they sent were actually some stubborn Kyuubi, Naruto, haters and Uchiha butt kissers. The Uchiha got away and hasn't been seen since. Naruto snarled. He was really annoyed with this village at times. So Naruto, Kiba said, I heard that you came and you brought 2 hot babes. Naruto said, yeah, and they're with me along with your mom. Also I would approach them. One is aligned with cats, so she wouldn't like you very much, especially with how bad you stink. They both hate perverts with a passion. When they caught him peeping on them when we visited the land of hot spring, he was put in the hospital for months. The rest of the time there everyone spent time catching up. Naruto told them about the people he met in his sword. He didn't tell them about its shape-shifting power. When he told them about that and about Hinata getting the sword of Ryuga, they were all surprised how far Hinata had come. When Neji told them about the major beating that the Hyuga Council got, they were really surprised and happy that Hinata finally knocked the old jerks around since they tortured her for so long. They also asked Naruto for some extra training. Naruto didn't want to accept at first, but he was convinced after a heavy dose of puppy dog eyes from the girls. Naruto arrived at his clan compound to see Fu and Yugito waiting for him. Hey Naruto, Fu said, where have you been? Naruto said, well, I got to see Hinata kick the entire Hyuga Council's hide. Then I ran into the old rookies from the village and we caught up on some stuffy. By the way, I brought ramen and sushi home with me. Naruto took out the 2 objects when he mentioned them. They were promptly swiped from him and inhaled by the 2 girls. Naruto wondered how the girls could eat like that and still manage to look so hot. They were interrupted when an Anbu appeared in a puff of smoke. Namikaze-sama, the man said, the Hokage has called for you. Naruto nodded and vanished in a burst of flames. Naruto reappeared in the Hokage's office in the same fashion that nearly made the woman jump out of her skin. You rang? Naruto asked. Yes, the woman said, we just received a message from Suna. Apparently a duo of S-rank ninja wearing black cloaks with red clouds on them kidnapped the current Kazekage Gaara. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard that. Gaara is the Kazekage? Naruto asked, why doesn't anyone ever tell me these things? Tsunade shrugged her shoulders and said, there is more. As you probably already know, Sasuke Uchiha was allowed to leave the village thanks to the ignorance of some of the more butt-kissy types in the village. He has also been sighted along the border of Suna with the 3 unknown characters. If Sasuke Uchiha becomes a threat, you are allowed to fight him. If possible, bring him back alive so I can beat some manners into that ignorant little prick. You'll be joined by Jiraiya and one of my Anbu. You will depart in a half hour. Naruto looked at her and said, I accept the mission. As for the beating some manners into him, he tried to get you to have his babies, didn't he? Tsunade's nod was the only answer Naruto needed. With that, the blonde set out on his mission. Chapter 14, The Mission to Sunagakure. A 3-way rumble. Naruto ran through the forest. By his side was the old pervert Jiraiya. With them was an Anbu with a decorated tiger mask and a Tonto on his back. We got to get to Suna fast, Naruto said. I could summon a toad to get us there, Jiraiya suggested. Naruto said, no, your toad summons may be fast, but we're going to need something a lot faster. Naruto drew his sword and went through a few hand signs and said, summoning jutsu, dragon. In a massive plume of smoke a large black and red dragon appeared with its wings spread wide. Naruto yelled, get on you guys. We got a really long way to fly. With that, the trio of powerful ninja jumped on the large lizard's back and the massive lizard flew up and out of the area. Naruto said, I need you to fly us to Sunagakure as soon as possible, Fang. The dragon nodded and Naruto felt the dragon's wings move and the boy said, You guys are going to want to hang on. The Anbu and Toad Sage did just as they said. Good thing they did, because the dragon suddenly shot forward with intense speed that made the fastest of the toads look like a bunch of snails. As it flew over a town, and as a result a lot of glass was broken due to the sonic boom that followed it. In a little less than an hour the group of Konoha ninja was flying over the desert of Wind Country. Upon arriving the dragon sniffed the air. Lord Naruto, the dragon said, I have picked up multiple scents. Naruto asked, where are they? What do they smell like? The dragon sniffed again and said, 3 smells are coming from the east. One smells like sand and blood, the second like clay and smoke, and the third smells like poison, blood, and wood. From the west there is the scent of ash, fire, and, wow, I can actually smell the arrogance and pride coming off this one. Naruto growled, so Sasuke really is here. I'm going to take down the Prince of Arrogance. Can you two handle the kidnappers? The two nodded. Naruto then said to the dragon, take these 2 to the 3 scents. I'll be heading for the other one. Find the direction of the scents and get to them yesterday. With that Naruto jumped off the dragon's back, shocking the pair of ninja. Their shock turned total awe when Naruto's left eye turned green and his right turned red. Naruto then shot through the air, actually flying. When Naruto was out of sight the pair looked at one another. Wow, Minato would be so jealous of his son right now, Jiraiya said as he saw his student's child disappear. Tenzo, the Anbu, could help but nod dumbly as he saw that. The dragon shifted, making the two turn their attention. They noticed that they were heading straight for a cave. Outside of it were 4 figures. The first was a man or woman with long blonde hair with a lock falling over one eye. The second was a hunchback character with a straw hat. The third was actually a red-haired boy with the kanji for love on his eye. The fourth was an old woman with long graying hair and tired eyes. The first 2 were wearing a black cloak with red clouds on them. The redhead, Gaara, was bound in what resembled clay. The blonde man was watching guard over Gaara while the hunchback and the old woman were fighting. The hunchback was using puppets while the old woman simply smashed the puppets with her own strength. The blonde man/woman was Datara the Mad Bomber, and the hunchback was Sasori of the Red Sand. The dragon roared, gaining the attention of the 3 conscious fighters. A large jet of black flames shot out and nearly incinerated the hunchback, who was barely able to dodge the technique. Jiraiya and Tenzo jumped down from the large flying lizard that then burst into smoke, returning to its home. The hunchback looked at the duo and noticed the symbols that they wore. Konoha, the hunchback said, this doesn't really surprise me. Jiraiya said, surrender and return the Kazekage. Tenzo looked at Jiraiya and said, is that the best you can come up with? Jiraiya looked at the Anbu and said, it's all I could think of on the spot. Tenzo rolled his eyes behind his mask and suddenly dodged a punch from the blonde man/woman. He dodged a few more shots before throwing out a kick. The man/woman cried out in pain and clutched his crotch. Oh, you're a guy, Tenzo said. The man said, what kind of statement is that? Of course I'm a guy. Tenzo shrugged and said, well, it's just that you have long hair and it looks like you're trying to hide your figure behind that cloak. The blonde snarled and got up and yelled, I am a guy. That's it. I'm going to sprinkle the desert with your powdered bones. The blonde man shot forward, roaring in fury, while Jiraiya joined the old woman who was fighting the hunchback. Meanwhile, Naruto flew through the air and finally caught sight of a person. The figure was tall, thin, wearing a mostly gray and black outfit with a sword, a small katana on his hip and large lever-like sword on his back. Naruto recognized the man's hairdo as it resembled the backside of a duck. Naruto landed, picking up some dust and debris. He looked in front of him to see the wayward former prince of Konoha, Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke still had his signature hairdo, but his style had changed. He wore a pair of black pants with a gray shirt. On the back of the Uchiha's shirt was the image of the Mangekyo Sharingan. He had a katana-like sword that Naruto recognized as the Kusanagi. Naruto also saw something on his back that made his blood boil. It was the sword of Zabuzama Mochi, Kubikiri Bocho. It's been a long time, Namikaze-sama, Sasuke said with the sama pronounced sarcastically. Naruto said, that it has. I have to ask Sasuke. Why did you leave? You were Konoha's prominent prince. What would you gain from leaving? Sasuke chuckled and said, power. Konoha didn't have anything to give me. I left so that I could gain the power I needed to finally kill my traitor of a brother. Sasuke pointed to the 2 swords on his person. I got the Kusanagi from the base and Oto I went to. As for this, motions to Kubikiri Bocho, I got off that fool Zabuza. He tried to bring me back to that weak village about a month or so after I left. He underestimated me and I took it from his corpse. Naruto growled as he saw the sword on his back. Naruto then said, in other words, you used a cheap trick and used the coward's way of fighting. This means that I'm good to kill you like the coward that you are, Uchiha. Sasuke smirked before activating his Sharingan. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw Sasuke's Sharingan take the form of a six-pointed shuriken. "You like it?" Sasuke asked. "It's called the Mangekyo Sharingan. I attained it when I cast a genjutsu on myself to make myself think I killed someone important, or in my case just all the people who have stood in my way." Naruto growled again as his eyes flashed through the colors of the elements. If Sasuke wasn't so busy living it up, he would have seen Naruto's eyes turn purple for a second. Back with the Konohanin and the old lady, Jiraiya dodged a few blades and slammed his foot into the side of a puppet, making it shatter. The hunchback revealed that had the ability to control multiple puppets. Out of the sand he had summoned a great deal of them and was manipulating them with incredible ease. Fortunately, his training allowed him to keep up with all the puppets, as he found that the weapons that the puppets had were coated in poison. The old woman, who was named Chiyo, fought using medical abilities that allowed her to shatter the puppets like they were brittle. Tenzo was also having difficulties with his opponent. The blonde man was able to launch clay bombs from his hands. They took different forms such as humans, birds, or bats, and each had a different effect along with the powerful explosion that would happen if they made contact with him. Luckily, Tenzo had a special ability that allowed him to defend himself. This ability was Makuten, or wood release. The wood he was able to creature was strong enough to block the attacking bombs and allowed him to counter with the water jutsu that he knew. Jiraiya grinned as he found that the number of puppets around him was starting to dwindle. He smashed a certain puppet before going through hand signs. Toad oil bullet. Sasori, the hunchback, was caught in the blast of oil and suddenly found it very hard for him to move. Chiyo shot forward along with Jiraiya. The man formed a Rasengan in his hand while chakra was focused into Chiyo's hand. The two impacts were enough to send the puppeteer flying backwards. His body hit the rock and there was a lot of dust kicked up. Jiraiya and Chiyo stood at the ready in case there was some kind of counter. They were right to be as the body of the hunchback broke away to reveal red-headed male who was actually a puppet himself. "So this is what you've done to yourself," Chiyo said with a shocked and a slightly disgusted look. Sasori said, "Yes, I've truly mastered the art of puppetry. Now let me show you what a real puppet master can do." Red sand art, manipulation of 100 puppets. Thousands of chakra strings shot out of the puppet man's arms. At that moment 100 puppets burst from the ground. While most looked ordinary, there were a few peculiar ones. One was a large salamander-like puppet that had a massive frill on the back of its neck. The second was actually the puppet he was wearing. A special seal flashed on it that allowed it to repair, and it jumped up, revealing a dark-skinned puppet that had a large mask on its back with the mouth open. It also had what resembled a scorpion tail coming out of its back. The final one made Chiyo's eyes widen. It was the third Kazekage. She said, "Be careful." The puppet in the middle was made from the body of the third Kazekage. He was known for his magnetic techniques and it might still have it. Chiyo took a scroll out from her back and went through a few hand signs before she called out, "White secret technique, the Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets." In a plume of smoke 10 human-sized puppets stood around her. While each of them wore a white cloak, they all had different appearances. The first was one that looked like a traditional Oni with white hair, gray skin, and 2 gold-curved horns. This one had a pair of colossal fists. The second had a gray area around its mouth with a single part of hair sticking up from the top of his head. Like the one before it, this one had a pair of large fists. The third puppet had a red face and white hair. This one had small hands, but it looked like this one had smaller hands. The fourth puppet had long black hair, gray skin, and what looked like purple eyes. The fifth puppet had blue skin and had multiple holes in the top of its head. The sixth puppet had spiky gray hair and a green area around the lower half of its face around the mouth. If it opened its mouth, you would see the kanji for Buddha. The seventh puppet had gray hair in a ponytail, a gray beard, and red markings under its eyes. If it opened its mouth, you would see the kanji for Dharma. The eighth puppet had white hair and long sideburns with the kanji for Sangha in its mouth. The ninth puppet looked like a woman with red hair that was done up in 2 large buns. To top it off, the puppet was wielding a pair of broadswords. The final puppet had gray hair with 1 eye in the middle of its head. "Come on, boy," Chiyo said, "show me what you got." The 2 puppeteers and the Toad Sage charged at one another. While all this was going on, Tenzo was dodging multiple bombs that were thrown by Deidara. Back with Naruto and the Lord of Pride, Sasuke was glaring angrily at Naruto. The fight was supposed to be easy for him. This was supposed to be the final stepping stone before he was ready to face Itachi. This was obviously not going his way. Sasuke immediately started the fight Dojutsu and tried to use Naruto's own style against him. The attack failed. Naruto had shown incredible skill in his own fighting style. Unknown to Sasuke, Naruto had found another taijutsu style to help him. This style mostly relied on focusing regular chakra to his arm and legs and used increased speed and strength to his advantage. Sasuke hadn't expected this and was immediately repelled by the attack. This was followed by a few backup punches that he could have swore should have been thrown by Tsunade. Naruto dug his heels into the sand. He looked at Sasuke was panting and now sporting a black eye at a busted lip. Sasuke glared at Naruto with an intense hatred. He drew the Kusanagi while Naruto drew his own sword. The pair shot forward. The two met with a loud clang. Sasuke and Naruto struggled slightly before they started swinging rapidly. The sound of clanging metal and showers of sparks fell to the sand beneath them as they fought. After a few swings, Naruto pushed Sasuke back and his eyes turned to brown and green. The boy raised his hand and yelled, "Desert Dagger." The blonde swung his sword down and sent a wave of sand at Sasuke. The Uchiha barely dodged the attack, feeling a deep gash on his leg. He growled in frustration as electricity surged around his sword. He made a thrusting motion and growled, "Chidori Sharp Spear." Naruto saw the attack coming and Naruto's eyes turned green quickly. Naruto spun around like a twister, picking up the sand and dispersing the electric technique with the wind acting like a natural insulator. Sasuke rubbed his eyes as sand entered them, making it very hard for the boy to open his eyes. He suddenly found himself the victim of a powerful clothesline. Naruto then grabbed Sasuke's ankles and swung him around before throwing him like a softball into the air. Naruto's eyes turned green and yelled, "Sonic Clap." Naruto clapped his hands together, sending a wave of wind that hit the Uchiha with great force and sent him flying like a ragdoll and sent him crashing down onto the sand. Sasuke winced in pain. He rose up slowly and felt his chest stinging in a great amount of pain. He rose up slowly and glared angrily at Naruto, who was just looking down at him. "I'll give you one last warning, Sasuke," Naruto said. "Give up or face judgment sooner than later." Sasuke spat and growled, "Save your pity for the weak. I'll kill you here and now with the true power of the Uchiha clan." Sasuke's eyes started spinning and he growled, "Tsukuyomi." Naruto's eyes widened. Immediately they found themselves in Naruto's mind before a large chamber. "I know about the Kyuubi, Naruto," Sasuke said. "I found notes about it in the basin auto where I ran to. Once I kill it, you'll be powerless." Sasuke went over to the gate. He walked into the chamber. He was shocked to find it empty. Naruto chuckled and said, "The fox has been dead for a long time. In its place I found my own powers from it. Now, get your pale butt out of my head." Sasuke was then hit with an incredibly powerful gust of wind that knocked him clear out of Naruto's mind. Once back in the real world, Sasuke started panting. It had taken a lot of chakra for him to enter Naruto's thick skull. On top of that, his eyes were starting to sting from pain. Naruto said, "While we were on the business of weapons, Sasuke, let me show you something I learned." Naruto held out his sword and said, "Scourge, Funikusu yo Fun." In a flash of fire, Naruto's phoenix sword appeared. Naruto pointed the weapon. Sasuke growled and, despite the pain in his eyes, growled, "Amaterasu." Black flames shot out of the ground, attacked Naruto. The blonde simply said, "Incinerate, Phoenix Firebomb." Flames picked up on Naruto's sword and shot out. As they intercepted the black flames, they stood at a standstill. The flames mixed. Unfortunately for Sasuke, his eyes started to act up. In a sudden burst of pain, Sasuke closed his eye and the black flames vanished. The flames Naruto shot headed straight at Sasuke. The young Uchiha dodged the attack. The flames, however, actually seemed to curve and hit his arm and burned it to a crisp, making the boy call out in absolute agony. Naruto took a few steps forward and Sasuke decided to pull out his final card. He growled, "Susanoo." Sasuke was covered in a blast of purple chakra. Suddenly it grew up and formed a hulking being. It was huge with yellow eyes, holding a crossbow in one hand and a sword in the other. Sasuke was in the middle of the monster's ribcage, smirking down on Naruto. Naruto glared up at Sasuke. He then held out his sword parallel to the ground, and whispered, "Ban, Kai." Flames erupted on Naruto's sword and covered Naruto's arms. As the flames approached his face, his eyes opened, revealing them to be gold and red. The Susanoo giant held out its crossbow and fired a massive arrow. A column of fire shot up. Over the roaring flames, Sasuke could hear Naruto yelled, "Burn all evil to ash, Solar Flare Phoenix." When the flames cleared, it showed a giant red and white phoenix that stood as large as the Susanoo giant. If Sasuke wasn't so nervous at the moment, he would have seen Naruto on the back of the phoenix. Red and white armor wrapped around one arm, while his sword was now red and white with a phoenix head as the tsuba and a spike coming off the bottom of the pommel. There were also 4 chains coming off his armored limb that connected to the phoenix. The phoenix screeched, sending a heat wave that hit the Susanoo with incredible force. The giant stumbled back. The giant flaming bird flew up and started scratching at the ribcage with its claws and sliced open the ribs, hurting the Susanoo and breaking away Sasuke's protection. The phoenix then drew back its head and unleashed a blast of flames that destroyed the upper half of the Susanoo. Sasuke now was completely exposed. The flames the phoenix was made of wrapped around Naruto's body, and a large pair of flaming angelic wings formed on his back while his sword stayed in its Bankai form. Naruto then called out the move that would finish the fight. He pointed his weapon at Sasuke, who was standing scared in the middle of the slowly regenerating Susanoo. Naruto called out, "Fire blade of the exploding sun." The flames around Naruto's blade burned even hotter, and Naruto swung his weapon, sending a wave of white-hot flames surging at the Uchiha. The flames hit and the rest of the Susanoo was obliterated. Sasuke screamed in agony as the flames ate away at his flesh. He didn't scream long, as the flames quickly turned his flesh into ashes. Naruto hit the ground. His sword went back to its original form as Naruto let out a deep breath of air. He rolled his shoulders and walked over to where Sasuke had been burned. Ashes rained all around him, and a good part of the sand around him had been turned to glass. Naruto looked among the sand and ashes to find Kubikiri Bocho and the Kusanagi. Naruto knew that there were two people who would want these in Konoha. He sealed them up in some scrolls H had in his jacket. At that moment Naruto felt a sudden flux in chakra. He focused his senses. He could feel his friend's chakra and faced the direction. The mark on his neck grew red and the image of chains spread over his body. The chains continued to glow and covered him. The image pans away from the boy to show the desert, and a roar of anger was heard. A black figure, presumably Naruto, flew up into the air and shot towards the direction of the fight. Back with the others, Jiraiya fired another blast of oil from his mouth. The white-haired pervert then pulled out a few seals before throwing them, and the exploding tags on them exploded. The result was a large explosion that wiped out a great deal of puppets. Chio's own puppets were very effective in the fight. The puppets had shown incredible powers. Puppet 1 and 2 just brawled with the puppets, smashing them to pieces. Puppet 3 would fire an orb from its mouth that would act like a giant chakra shuriken that would slice puppets to pieces. This weapon was able to destroy the puppet of the third Kazekage. Puppet 4 worked with Puppet 3 by extending its hand via chain. Puppet 3 would then fling its compatriot around and smash puppets around it. The impact smashed the side of the frill on the salamander puppet by smashing the part that kept the frill connected. Puppet 5 could shoot spikes out of the holes on its head. Puppet 6, 7, and 8 worked together to create a technique Chio called the 3 Joules crushing suction technique. The 3 puppets would get in a triangle formation before a massive tornado appeared. This attack was powerful enough to smash most of the puppets, especially when the scorpion-like puppet was destroyed. Puppet 9 would slice through puppets left and right, though the swords did limit the puppet's dexterity. Finally, Chio and Puppet 10 were facing off with Sasori. The red-headed puppet man was fighting the duo off using blades on his arms. Jiraiya smashed one final puppet before shooting forward and firing one last blast of oil from his mouth. The blast caught Sasori and he couldn't move. The 10 puppets and Chio moved in. Chio punched the man in the face. Puppet 1 and 2 did the same. Puppet 3 shot its chakra shuriken forward and sliced off one of Sasori's arms. Puppet 4 whipped him with his chain hand. Puppet 5 just rammed its spikes into the puppet master's chest. Puppet 6, 7, and 8 all hit him with a powerful strike with a pincer maneuver. Puppet 9 swung her sword, cutting off Sasori's other arm. Finally, Puppet 10 opened its mouth and fired an orb from it. As it flew at Sasori, Chio said, "Sealing technique, lion closing roar." The orb opened up and pinned Sasori to the wall. It spread and the spikes pressed the man to the wall. Jiraiya formed a Rasengan and slammed it into the puppet man's chest, destroying his heart. As life left him, he looked at Chio and said, I'm sorry, grandmother." With that, the puppet master of the Akatsuki died. Jiraiya looked at Chio and shrugged before they ran at Tenzo, who was dodging bombs from Deidara. Deidara suddenly found himself surrounded by the 3 of them. "Give up," Jiraiya said. "You can't beat all of us." Tenzo, who was really low on chakra, said, "It's about time. What took you so long? Did that doll boy give you that much of a hard time?" Jiraiya said, this coming from the guy who had trouble fighting a guy who makes clay toys. Tenzo snarled. Deidara was an expert with his bombs. He had nearly killed Tenzo multiple times if not for all the wood defense techniques that he knew. His clothes were slightly burned. Deidara was also injured. He had multiple blast wounds from a few of Tenzo's water jutsu as well as a couple cuts from the Anbu member's tanto. Deidara cut off the old sage by laughing and said, "I will beat you, even if I have to destroy myself to do it." The mad bomber ripped his shirt off, showing a mouth on his chest that was stitched shut. Deidara quickly formed a ball of clay and shoved it into the mouth. Chakra veins spread across his body and he growled, "I'll see all of you in hell." The ultimate art, C0. His body started to rupture. At that time a black blur flew up and grabbed him. The man was then flown into the air by what grabbed him. The flying figure then drew back his arm and unleashed a right hook that sent the mad bomber flying. Once high up in the air, Deidara exploded with tremendous form. With the creator dead, the clay that held Gaara started to break. Gaara was still unconscious, but he was alive. The figure landed on the ground hard in front of them. When it stood up they got a good look at it. The figure was tall with spiky red hair. Its skin was darkened and almost a sickening black. It had spikes of bone coming off the back of its elbows and its knees. He also had blades of bone shooting out of the top of his forearms outward toward his hands. The iris of its eyes was red while the sclera was black. On its back were a large black angel wing and a large bat wing. It also had a few bone spikes coming out of its back. What got Jiraiya and Tenzo's attention was its face. There were 3 crimson marks that resembled scars on each cheek. "Naruto?" Jiraiya asked. Slowly the creature turned back to normal, revealing Naruto. Naruto grinned weakly. As the strain from using his Bankai and the full power of his curse mark set in, he collapsed just in time for Jiraiya to catch him. "He's exhausted," Chiyo said looking at the boy. "Come on, let's get him and the Kazekage back to Sunagakure." With that they left. As they did, they didn't notice a man with orange hair and purple eyes that had a ring pattern. Chapter 15, Return to Konoha and, "You're my what?" Deep in the bowels of Omegakure, a man with long red hair sat in the middle of a large pod. This was the leader of the Akatsuki Nagato, aka Pain. Now most would be surprised to see this because when the leader of the Akatsuki spoke to them it was usually a man with orange hair. There was the sound of knocking and a woman entered the room. She was tall and beautiful with blue hair, orange eyes, and an origami rose put in her hair. "Pain-sama," the woman said, "I have returned." The red-haired man reached out and took some papers the woman had with her. "Is this true?" the man said as he looked at the papers. "Is it really true, Konan?" The now identified Konan said, "Yes, Pain-sama, I'll leave you to your thoughts." With that the woman left to leave Pain to his thoughts. As the door closed it automatically locked. Pain hung his head from his spot. As he did, tears started to run down his face. Crying was something he hadn't done in years. Something he swore he would never do again. The tears would not stop, however, as darkened memories rose to the surface. Flashback many years ago in the now destroyed country of Uzugakure. A much younger Nagato ran around after a little girl who was about a year or so younger than him. The girl giggled as she jumped around followed by her big brother. "I'm gonna get you," Nagato yelled. "Oh, no you're not," the girl yelled back. Nagato jumped after the girl and she squealed as her brother tackled her and they wrestled on the ground. She was then put in headlock and given a noogie. "Nagato. Kushina. Lunch," came the voice of their mother. As they ran and Kushina asked, "Are we having ramen?" Their mother said, "Kushina, what have told you about ramen?" Kushina sighed and said, "It may be good but it's unhealthy to eat every day." The woman smiled and said, "Good girl, now go join your brother." The 3 sat down for lunch. As they did, Nagato asked, "Do you think Dad will be home in time for the festival?" Their mother said, "I don't know honey. Your father is really busy with the war and all." Nagato sighed, "Well, when I pass the Junon exam in a few months I'll be able to join Dad on the battlefield." Kushina giggled and said, "I'll join you too big brother when I pass. Then we'll become the most powerful ninja siblings in the village." The brother and sister fist bumped while their mother smiled at their antics. Later that night, Nagato was brought out of his sleep one by the sound of something crashing and the smell of smoke. The redhead looked out his window to see houses on fire and ninja running through the streets. A lot of them had symbols he didn't recognize. He then heard somebody scream. The boy ran downstairs just in time to get tackled by a blur. He looked down to see Kushina with her arms wrapped tightly around him crying hysterically. Nagato was about to ask why when he looked over to see their mother. She was beaten, bleeding, and her neck was twisted at an odd angle. Her shirt and pants were ripped open and he dared not think as to why. "What do we do?" Kushina asked. "Big brother, I'm scared." Nagato comforted his little sister and said, "It going to be okay Kushina. We need to get out of here." At that moment the crack of wood was heard and a beam fell through the roof. Nagato pushed Kushina away and the beam crashed down separating them. "Big brother." The young girl yelled. "I'm okay," Nagato yelled, "go to our old secret hideout. We'll meet up there as soon as possible." "Okay," Kushina yelled to be heard over the flames. With that the duo left in different directions. About an hour later. Something was wrong. Kushina should have been at their hideout a while ago. Their secret hideout was an old cave that they had found a few months ago and was near the edge of the village. Thanks to their constant hide and seek they knew all of the nooks and crannies of the village. He knew that she should have been brought in here as soon as or close to the time he did. The boy saw a group of the foreign ninja coming and, even though it made his heart ache, he ran into the cave to find a way out of the village before he was killed. About 15 minutes later Nagato got out of the caves around the edge of the village. He looked around and gasped at what he saw. His village, his only home, was completely gone. The entire village was now completely destroyed. Fires were sending smoke up into the air. The buildings were taken down and he could see the bodies of the villagers, both local and foreign. Nagato took a risk before he cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, "Kushina!" There was no response. He yelled even louder, "Kushina!" Tears started to well up in his eyes as he fell to the ground sobbing. "Crying isn't going to bring them back, boy," said a voice. Nagato turned around to see a man standing behind him. He was wearing a headband that had a symbol that resembled rain. "Come with me, child," the man said, "there is nothing here for you now." The man started to leave. Nagato sighed. He wanted to turn around and run back to the village. He wanted to go back and try and find his little sister. He wanted to find her and go somewhere, but he doubted she had survived. He didn't have anywhere else to go. So he followed the strange man, and flashback. The man brought Nagato to Omake. It was there he met his adoptive family and his two best friends Yahiko and Konan. When his adopted parents were killed by attacking Konohanian, that is what set the man off. He became reclusive, cold, and he forgot about Kushian for a while. He eventually rose in power after meeting and being trained by Jiraiya after he gained the title of Sannin. He rose in power until he was able to beat the tyrannical ruler of Ame, Hanzo. He then started the Akatsuki with the idea of bringing peace to the world. Now he was learning that his sister's child may in fact be alive. Old emotions stirred in the man's stomach. "Konan," the man said. "Yes, Pain-sama?" the woman asked as she entered again. The man said, "I need you to do something for me." Meanwhile, Naruto, Jiraiya, and Tenzo were making their way towards Konoha. After being taken to the hospital to treat his chakra exhaustion, Naruto and his group left the sandy village after they got the bounty for Sasori. Despite the puppets being badly damaged, Kankuro took them into use for himself when the time came. With that done, the trio left at a much faster pace and headed for Konoha. Flying on the back of one of Naruto's dragon, they made it in record time. Once they arrived, they were halted by the two eternal guards Izumo and Kotetsu. Once inside, they immediately went to the Hokage's office. When they entered, they found the blonde female Hokage asleep on her desk. "She did this a lot back in the academy, didn't she?" Naruto asked Jiraiya, who nodded. Naruto said, "Does anyone know how to wake her up?" As she said that, Shizune walked up behind Naruto and said, "I think I know a way how." The brunette walked up to the sleeping god and yelled, "Wake up, Lady Tsunade. Jiraiya is trying to molest you in your sleep." Almost immediately, Tsunade jumped up from her sleeping position and glared ominously at Jiraiya before shooting forward and unleashing brutal right hook that knocked the man through a few walls before he lost enough momentum to collapse to the ground. Naruto, Tenzo, and Shizune all laughed at Jiraiya's misfortune and at the shocked and slightly embarrassed look on Tsunade's face. "That wasn't very nice to do to Jiraiya," Tsunade said. "Yes," Shizune said, "but do I really need an excuse to see the pervert get socked in the face?" Tsunade shrugged and said, "Fair enough. Now, how did the mission go?" Naruto said, "The mission to Sunagakure was a success. Tenzo and Jiraiya faced off against Deidara and Sasori with the help of someone from Suna named Chiyo, while I went off to face the Sasuke Uchiha. Sasori was beaten and killed by the combined efforts of Chiyo and Jiraiya. After my fight with the Uchiha, I managed to throw Deidara away from the group when he tried to do some crazy suicide jutsu. The Kazekage was then returned home." Tsunade asked, "What happened to the Uchiha?" Naruto grinned and said, "His ashes are mixing with the sands as we speak." Tsunade grinned when she heard that. Naruto then said, "I also recovered the kusangi from him as well as the sword Kubikiri Bocho stolen from our own deceased Zabuzama Mochi." Tsunade nodded and said, "Will you be returning the swords to their rightful owners?" Naruto said, "If by rightful owners you mean Anko Mitarashi and Hakumamochi, then yes, I am." The female Kage nodded and said, "You will be receiving your pay for this tomorrow afternoon. By the way, you might want to get home and say your daughter Naruto. She has been wondering where you've been, kid." Naruto nodded before he vanished in a flash of yellow light. Jiraiya and Tenzo also vanished in a shushin. "I wonder what happened to just going through the door?" Shizune asked as handed a pile of paperwork to her mentor. At the Namix compound, Naruto appeared in a bright yellow. Naruto stepped forward and opened the door to the main building. Almost as soon as he did, he was tackled by a blur. He looked down to see his little girl squeezing his diaphragm and cuddling his chest. "Hey, my little butterfly," Naruto said, cuddling his little girl in his arms, calling her by the pet name he had for her. "How have things been since I went on the mission?" Kira answered, "I've been good, Daddy. Mama and Aunt Yugito are out shopping. They got me these really nice babysitters." The father and daughter pair walked into the house just in time to see Haku and Aiko. "Hello, Naruto," Haku said, "it has been some time." Naruto grinned and said, "Anko Mitarashi and Hakumamochi, just the pair I wanted to see." The two looked at each other and said, "We are?" Naruto nodded. He set the girl down and she sat down in a nearby chair. Naruto took out the 2 scrolls he had under his jacket and unsealed the 2 weapons inside. The kusanagi clattered to the floor while Kubikiri Bocho smashed into the ground. Both of the girls had wide eyes. Anko tentatively picked up the kusanagi as if it was going to bite. With a little difficulty Haku managed to lift the massive sword that belonged to her now deceased father figure. "Naruto, did you get these from?" Haku started. Naruto nodded and said, "Ran into the duck-haired jerk on our last mission. I got them from him with a little persuasion." Naruto would have just said that he killed the smug sob, but there was a child in the room. The 2 girls hugged Naruto tightly and left whooping with joy. Kira walked up to Naruto and said, "Hey daddy, while you were away I learned a new trick." Naruto looked down at his little girl and asked, "Really? Well, don't just stand there leaving me in suspense, show me. While you're at it you can show me the other tricks you know." With that the pair went to the back of compound towards the training ground. As they did there was a knocking at the door. Naruto said, "Go on back sweetie, I'll be there in a minute." Naruto answered the door to see his perverted godfather standing there with a huge mark on the side of his face. "Hello Orosenin," Naruto said, "what are you doing here? And I better not hear anything about my daughter because you are not going to use her to try and pick up women." Jiraiya said, "Easy there Naruto. I just ran into those 2 girlfriends of yours. Fu said something about her having a special skill from both you and her. I was wondering what that was." Naruto sighed and said, "Darn you Fu and your sometimes very big mouth." Meanwhile Fu sneezed, making a lot of young men around her offer her a tissue and cause said girl and Yugito to roll their eyes at the desperation that some men in this village had. "I'll show you," Naruto said. With that he led the old man to the training ground. Kira was waiting for them and she waved yelling, "Hi Oye." Jiraiya face-palmed when he heard the little girl say that accursed nickname. Why is it that no one in Minato's family always disrespected him? Naruto said, "Okay my little butterfly, show me what you got." Kira nodded and, to the shock of Jiraiya, started focusing his chakra. As a result of being born from 2 Jinchuriki, Kira's chakra coils had developed extraordinarily fast, as well as it having the density of the Uzumaki clan chakra, which would allow her to use chakra chains when Naruto taught them to her. The chakra focused on Kira's back and a pair of large, for her size, butterfly wings spread out across her back. They were currently gray with a back line that resembled a monarch butterfly. "So that's why you call her that," Jiraiya said. Naruto nodded and said, "Okay little one, show us what you got." Kira nodded. She floated up into the air as the wings changed from gray to red. The wings burst into flames before she flapped them, sending wave of fire forward. They changed from red to blue before she flapped them again, sending waves of water that extinguished the flames. Her wings turned green as they flapped, sending waves of wind that blew away the smoke. Kira's wings turned white before she performed a tiny spin, sending a boomerang-shaped bolt of lightning outward that bounced around. Her wings finally turned brown as Earth focused on her wings. They took the blast of lightning and stood solid. Naruto clapped and said, "Good show little one. Now, what was that new trick you wanted to show me?" Kira grinned before he butterfly wings turned into a pair of dragonfly wings. The little girl's wings started buzzing. Naruto covered his ears due to the noise caused by the wings. The ground beneath her actually started to crack from the sound. "Whoa," Naruto said as Kira stopped buzzing and her wings receded. "Whoa is right," Jiraiya said. "What was that?" Kira jumped into Naruto's arms with a giggle. Naruto started to rock her back and forth. Kira tried to stave off the sleepy feeling that came with the rocking and Naruto said, "Don't worry sweetie. We can play when you wake up." The girl yawned cutely and started to sleep, snoring in an adorable way. "She got a mix of the chakra from me and Fu when she was born," Naruto explained. "When she was 2 she started manifesting these butterfly wings. On top of that her chakra coils started to develop faster than normal. By the time that she's a Jonin she'll have Jonin level chakra according to Tsume-chan. Anyway, we call her bloodline the Butaikoku, element butterfly. It's basically my bloodline mixed with the powers of an insect thanks to Fu containing that giant beetle. Though, the trick with the dragonfly's wings is new. Looks like it might extend if this goes on." Jiraiya was shocked when he heard this. Apparently Naruto's bloodline was versatile depending on who he bore children with. He wondered what would happen if he bore a child with Yugito and Tsume. Naruto was suddenly aware of an unfamiliar chakra. He said, "Would you mind putting Kira-chan to bed? I warn you, if you don't I warn you, I have a Hiroshin seal etched into all of her clothing so in case she gets kidnapped. So if you do something with her I will hunt you down and turn you into a lady." Jiraiya's face was as white as his hair as he grabbed the little girl gently from Naruto's arms and ran for it. Naruto said, "I know you're there lady, I can practically sense your chakra." There was a swift gust of wind and Konan appeared. "Are you Akatsuki getting so desperate that you have to attack me in my own home?" Naruto asked as he placed his hand on his weapon. Konan held up her hands in a peaceful gesture and said, "Easy there Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, I come in peace." Naruto said, "What are you doing here lady?" Konan answered, "I bring a message from a lost member of your family, of the Uzumaki clan." Naruto's eyes widened and he said, "What do you mean of the Uzumaki clan? I went to Uzugakure and it was nothing but ruins." Konan said, "He is a survivor of your homeland during the Third Shinobi War. He is willing to meet with you tonight if you are willing." With that she vanished in a plume of smoke. Naruto looked at where the woman had been standing just moments ago and sat down thinking. Was this a trap or was this the genuine article? He glanced up to where he could see Kira's room. Naruto thought for a second. He got up and created a shadow clone before running off to the Hokage Tower. A few hours later, Naruto stood around in the forest around the edge of Konoha. He glanced at the moon and guessed the time. Around him, hidden to the naked eye, were multiple Anbu and Jiraiya. Naruto stood still for a moment. Then he sensed a familiar chakra. He spun around and saw Konan walking with the red-haired man. He had no shirt showing his muscled exterior as well as 6 rods coming out of his back and what looked like armor covering his legs. Naruto noticed that the man seemed to have a little bit of trouble walking. "So, you are Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," the man said. "I take it you're the man that the pretty lady here told me about," Naruto said with a tone that made the man laugh. "You talk just like my sister," Nagato said, "my dear sister Kushina, if only I knew she was alive." Naruto gained a shocked look as did the Anbu and Jiraiya. "You're my uncle?" Naruto asked. "Yes," Nagato said, "I managed to get a blood sample from myself and from you after one of your many battles. We are related by blood. Unfortunately, I am the figurehead of the Akatsuki organization." At that everyone tensed. "So you're the leader of the group that has been hunting me and my kind for all this time?" Naruto yelled. Nagato said, "I don't expect you to understand child. I was driven by grief after the destruction of my village, and the death of my very best friend. This was long before I knew you were alive. Forgive my nephew. I wish to make amends, for my sister, your mother's sake." Naruto looked at the man with a raised eyebrow. He then said, "Tell me all you know about the members of the Akatsuki." Chapter 15, Mission to Kumo and New Recruits. It had been a few days since Naruto had met up with long-lost uncle. Nagato informed Konoha on all the Akatsuki members, the immortal duo Hidan and Kakuzu, the contradicting pair Kisame and Itachi, the plant weirdo Zetsu, and finally the mysterious masked man named Tobi. Nagato told them that Tobi thought he was the reincarnation of the long-dead Madara Uchiha due to the fact that he had one of his eyes transplanted into his face. Nagato originally thought he was crazy, but went along with it in his quest for eternal peace. He told Naruto that he would send them info on when the Akatsuki members would move and where they were going. When they were down enough members they would attack and take down the Akatsuki in their home base in Omake. Naruto agreed to this since it seemed like a thorough plan. Nagato hadn't gotten to meet Kira yet, because Naruto didn't fully trust him. Nagato knew that he would gain his nephew's trust eventually. Deep in Omake, Pain's Deva Path stood before the remaining members of the Akatsuki, Tobi, Kisame, Itachi, Hidan, and Zetsu. The Deva Path stepped forward and said, "Hidan, Kakuzu, I need you two to go to Hidden Cloud Village. You are to find the 8 tails and bring him down." Knowing their connection, if they find out the 2 tails and 9 tails are bound to show up as well. Hidan grinned maniacally and said, "Finally I get to send more poor souls to Lord Jashin." Kakuzu rolled his eyes at his comrades' antics and they turned to leave. The path then turned to Kisame and Itachi and said, "I want you two to go to Karakura. The 6 tails has finally resurfaced." The two nodded and left. As they did, Kisame said, "I can't believe we have to take on a giant freaking slug." Itachi said, "Do not be so impatient, Kisame. The 6 tails may provide you with a challenge that you so desperately seek." Kisame huffed and hefted his sword onto his back. The man turned to Zetsu and said, "Zetsu, split and follow both teams to report on their progress. If any of them fail in their mission, kill them." Zetsu nodded before his black and white half split in two and melded into the ground. Tobi floated up to Pain and said, not in his usually cheery tone, "You seem to be taking a bit of a stand sending both of our teams out. Why tell Zetsu to kill them if they fail?" The path answered, "We have already failed once in the retrieval of the 1 tails. The only reason I wasn't able to make an example of Sasori or Deidara was because they were already dead." Tobi actually grinned behind his mask. "You are becoming quite the ruthless leader, Pain. I like that." As he floated away he thought, "Too bad your power is a threat to my future plans. You made such a great leader too. Oh well, all good things must come to an end, my puppet." Tobi was so enwrapped in his thoughts that he never noticed a small toad in the corner of the room with Rinnegan eyes vanish in a puff of smoke. In Konoha, Kira yelled, "I'm gonna get you, Daddy." Naruto yelled back, No, you aren't. If anyone was able to see what was going on, they would sworn of alcohol if they were drunk. They would see Naruto flying through the air with one eye green and the other one red, while Kira flew after him with her wings green. This was actually both an exercise and a game for the duo. Naruto got to push his chakra to its limit by constantly shifting the chakra around him using his wind and fire powers. It also helped Kira get a good grip on flying and allowed her to enhance her maneuverability. All of that was wrapped up into one colossal game of tag. As the father-daughter duo was flying around in the air, an ear-splitting scream was heard from the Namikaze household down below. The two stopped flying as Yugito came out of the house and yelled, "Naruto! There's some freaky toad with ripple eyes in here. Get it to leave before Fu here has a meltdown." Naruto sighed when he heard about Fu. Being the fact that Fu had an insect sealed inside her, she had a slight fear of frogs and toads since they were one of the many natural enemies of bugs. It also didn't help that when she was 3 some teenage boys played a prank on her that involved throwing her in a barrel full of frogs and toads. She's been slightly freaked out by them. Naruto and Kira flew down and landed at the gate before they all walked in. They found the light brown toad with the ripple patterned eye. "Looks like Nagato sent his contact," Naruto said. Fu said, "Just get it out." The green-haired babe was currently jumped up into typical damsel in distress fashion, and Tsume's arms gripping her so tight that the dog-themed woman was starting to turn blue. "What is it that Nagato needs to tell us?" Naruto asked the amphibian. The toad opened its mouth and a recording of what was said was heard. "Thanks," Naruto said. "Tell Nagato that Yugito and I will go to Kumo to help out Kirabai. Also, can you tell him to send something small and fuzzy? Just don't send a cat or a dog on the fact that we have a dog and cat-themed women living with me. The last thing I need is for the house to get wrecked. Anyway, good luck with the plan. Say goodbye, Kira-chan." Kira ran up and said, "Bye, great Uncle Naga. Bye, pretty paper lady." With that, the amphibian disappeared in a puff of smoke. When it did, Fu got off Tsume and she started rocking back and forth on the couch in a fetal position, muttering, "Slimy, warts, long tongues, icky." Naruto shook his head and said, "Tsume-chan, when Fu gets out of her funk, could you go tell Tsunade where we went? The last thing I need is to be declared a missing nin by one of the people who still hates me." Tsume nodded as she rubbed Fu's head as she was still rocking back and forth. The duo ran out of the compound and Naruto summoned a dragon that flew up with them on their back and shot out in the direction of Kumo. Meanwhile, Itachi and Kisame were walking through a murky area in the land of water. Eventually they found who they were looking for. Sitting in a tree was a tall thin man with pale golden eyes and black hair that went down to his shoulders. His side parting let a large portion of his bangs cover the left side of his face. He wore a long, light blue kimono adorned with a small emblem of 3 bubbles on the back, and a pair of black pants underneath, with an orange sash. The kimono hangs loose, exposing his chest. In it, he carries a bamboo jug filled with a soap solution, and a pipe. The man looked towards them and said, "Oh, were you sent by Kari? Well, I'll tell you what I told that pain in the neck Yagura, I'm not going back." Itachi said, "Not entirely. Our master has a need for you and I would prefer that you come peacefully." Kisame looked at his partner and said, "Oh come on, at least let me cut off his legs so he can't run away." Utakata took out his pipe and dipped it in some solution. The man then said, "Allow me to think for a moment." "Okay, done, here's my answer. Water style, acid bubbles." The 6-tailed Jinchuriki blew on his pipe, sending green-colored bubbles outward at the 2 Akatsuki members. Almost immediately the water in the muck around them shot up and formed a water wall around him, blocking the bubbles and sending the acid to sink below into the water. "Bubbles, huh?" Kiam said, "No attack like the unexpected one. Now, let's play." Kisame ripped the bandages off his weapon, revealing the multiple blades that covered his weapon. He charged while Kisame rolled his eyes as he saw his partner's battle-crazed antics. Back around the Kumo area, Hidan was currently swinging his scythe, decapitating a few of the ninja and villagers that were around him. Hidan Kakuzu said, annoyed, "Do we have to do this every time we see a group of villagers that we come across? If we fail because of this your stupid ritual, then we're so screwed." Hidan spun around and yelled, "Shut up, Kakuzu. I have to please Jashin-sama. Oh great Jashin-sama, don't let this non-believer's stupidity insult you." With Hidan's last sacrifice done, the silver-haired sadist and his partner left. As they did though, they never noticed a pair of silver eyes filled with anger. Meanwhile, in a higher plane of existence, a little kid's laughter could be heard as he watched TV. On it was Hidan killing the people of the village and sacrificing them. He laughed as he saw this, but his mirth suddenly turned to fear when he felt a shadow standing over him. He turned around to see Kami standing above him with a very angry look on his face. "Jashin," the god said, his voice thundering, "what did I tell you about making crazed priests that are immortal?" The boy shuffled his feet nervously and answered, "To not to daddy." Kami nodded and said, "Good, now go to your room and think about what you've done. I'll clean up this mess." Jashin said, "But daddy." Kami interrupted and said, "No buts, little mister. Now go. Jashin sighed and walked away, grumbling about unfair parents and never being allowed to have any fun. Kami sighed and went to see if he could do something about a certain bloodthirsty priest. Back on Earth, Naruto and Yugito sat on the back of the dragon Naruto summoned and were flying at top speed towards Kumo. We might actually beat those two immortal freaks there, Naruto said. From what Nagato told me, one is money hungry and the other is insane over some fake god. Elsewhere, Hidan sneezed and yelled about somebody disgracing the great and powerful Jashin, which earned him a powerful right hook from Kakuzu. Yugito yelled, "Look!" Naruto and Yugito looked down to see two people with Kumo headbands. The first was a tall muscular man with white hair and a goatee. He had the kanji for iron tattooed on his right shoulder. On his left cheek was the tattoo of a bull's horns. He wore some oval-shaped sunglasses, a white forehead protector, a white one-strap over one shoulder flak jacket, and a long red rope wrapped around his waist. He also had white hand guards and shin guards and had a total of 7 swords sheathed on his back. The second was a fairly tall dark-skinned man with shaggy white hair that covered his left eye. His nose was slightly larger than normal and he had a lazy look in his eyes. He wore a black high-collared sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting black pants, bandages around his arms, and a one-strap over one shoulder flak jacket. He had the kanji symbols for water and lightning tattooed on his left and right shoulders respectively, and he had a foldable cleaver-like sword on his back. The dragon roared, getting the duo's attention. The lazy look in the second man's eyes was gone as his eyes widened as he saw the massive reptile landed on the ground. The blonde duo jumped off the legendary monster and landed in front of the two Kumo shinobi. "Hey Daru-san! Kirabai-sensei!" Yugito yelled, "Remember me?" The large man with sunglasses said, "Hey Yugito. What you know? How you been doing over in Kono?" Yugito answered, "First of all, I've been doing good. Second of all, stop it with the rhyming." The attractive blonde then smashed the man over the head with her fist, making him faceplant. Kirabai then got up and rushed himself off like nothing happened. "Does he always have to talk like that?" Naruto asked. Daru said, "He does. It isn't dull when he does it through because the reactions of the other people around him are completely hilarious." Kirabai was currently writing down the rhyme he made earlier and was putting the book away when he looked at Naruto. "Hey," the Eight-Tails said, "I can sense the Nine-Tails chakra inside of the kid over there." Kirabai walked towards the blonde and said, "Hey, boyo. Eito can't sense the power of the Nine-O." Naruto then smacked Kirabai over the head and said, "Enough with the rapping. Seriously, I've only heard you talk twice so far and I've already want to rip you a new one. Anyway, I used to be the Jinchuriki of Kurama. He passed on a few years ago." Kirabai Winston Gyuki, the Eight-Tails, was raging about how it wasn't fair that he wouldn't get the chance to kick that stupid to the curb the next time he got to see him. Meanwhile inside, Yugito Matatabi, the two-tailed cat, whined and said, "I miss my dear sweet Q-kun." Yugito sighed as when the two-tailed cat was sent into a deep wailing fit when she found out that Kyubi was died and was completely gone. The group was brought out of their discussion when two people arrived. Well, what do we have here?" Hidan said with a cruel smirk. "We have the two-tails, the nine-tails, and the eight-tails all in one place. This is going to be easy." Kakuzu nodded and said, "Yeah, where have I seen that other guy before?" The man took out a little book and said, "Oh hi yeah, Daru of the Black Lightning. We can turn you into one of the neighboring countries. I think they would pay a pretty price for those black lightning techniques of yours." Daru glared at the man before he unsheathed his massive cleaver sword, unfolded it, and had it at the ready. "Hey," Daru said, "Yugito. You want to join me in a rumble with the masked guy for old time's sake?" Kakuzu cracked his knuckles and grinned as he thought of the money he was going to get for turning in Daru to one of the neighboring villages. "Well, Nino," Kirabai said, "looks you me against the crazy emo." "Ooh, that's a good one." The man took out a book and pencil and started to write down the latest rhyme. Naruto looked at the man strangely. Hidan snarled and yelled, "Don't ignore me you freak." Hidan charged with his scythe pulled back and was prepared to decapitate Kirabai. The large man took his pencil and focused his lightning chakra into his pencil before he threw it forward. The small utensil being used as a weapon caught Hidan by surprise. The pencil pierced and came out the back of Hidan's shoulder and smashed into the ground behind him. Hidan clutched his limb in pain. Kirai took a deep breath and blasted a cloud of ink from his mouth. Hidan was hit by the cloud with God in his eyes, making them sting, and he screamed at the pain in his eyes. Naruto caught the idea before his eyes turned white. He drew back his arms and yelled, "Thunderclap!" Naruto clapped his hands together and sent a wave of electricity at the man. Hidan was hit the lightning blast that went through the ink and blasted through his chest. Hidan stumbled back and roared in fury. "Look what you did to me," he yelled, "you will pay." Hidan went forward, shocking Kirabai and Daru. Yugito and Naruto weren't surprised though from the information that they got from Nagato and Konan. "Dorai, Naruto said, "If you wanna kill Kakuzu you got to slice 5 or 6 times. Kirby, let's wipe this freak off the face of the earth." Daru's bored expression was replaced with an interested one and he said, "Now this isn't dull. Let's rumble." Daru shot forward and swung his cleaver sword slicing Kakuzu's chest, but not enough to kill him the first time. Daru focused power into his hand and slammed his fist into Kakuzu's jaw, knocking him backwards. Yugito followed after him. Naruto dodged a swing from Hidan's scythe and countered with a vicious uppercut. Hidan stumbled from the powerful impact and was then knocked down when Kirby shot forward and slammed a powerful lightning chakra-enhanced fist into his face. Hidan jumped up and yelled, "Is that all you pansies got?" Naruto growled, "Oh, you did not just call me a pansy. Roar, Ryuto." In a burst of flame, Naruto's katana was by a zanbatsu. Naruto charged and swung the sword and it met with Hidan's triple-bladed weapon with a loud clang. Yugito and Daru vs Kakuzu. Kakuzu dodged another punch from Daru, but a follow-up punch from Yugito knocked him back. Kakuzu unleashed a punch of his own. The duo dodged and it was a good thing it did. The power behind the punch was enough to shatter the ground. Yugito went through hand signs and yelled, "Hellfire Blast!" Purple and blue flames burst from Yugito's mouth at an incredible speed. Kakuzu vanished in a burst of speed. The flames actually managed to burn Kakuzu's cloak. When they got a look at Kakuzu's back they saw that he had 4 masks on his back. They immediately got that might be why Naruto told them to kill this guy about 5 times. Daru went through hand signs and said, "Storm Style, Laser Circus." A glowing aura appeared on his hands and he fired a barrage of lasers from his hands. Kakuzu dodged them thanks to his incredible speed. However, own victory was short-lived as one blasted his arm off. The two ninja were shocked when multiple black threads shot out of his severed elbow and reattached the severed part. Yugito got out of her shock first and focused her powers with Matatabi's chakra and she shot forward with speed that matched Kakuzu. The duo grappled and jumped into the air and started trading blows DBZ style. Kakuzu managed to slam his knee into Yugito's stomach, making her double over. He was about to bring his elbow down when Yugito vanished in a blur of speed. Kakuzu suddenly found himself stabbed in the back by Daru's sword, making him scream out in pain. The pain grew and his arm went completely numb as the Kumo ninja focused lightning chakra into the blade, making him cry out in pain. Daru threw the man away before Yugito came up again and focused the Nibi's chakra into her hands. Hellfire claws. Purple and blue flames appeared on the woman's hands and formed cat-like claws. The large claws stabbed into Kakuzu's chest and stabbed into his chest destroyed his 2 more hearts, leaving him only 2 left. Kakuzu growled in anger before throwing a fist up and slamming Yugito in the jaw, knocking her onto the ground. The immortal doll man then grabbed Daru's arm and twisted him around before throwing him into the ground. He pulled the sword upward and out of his sword and the black thread sealed his wounds. The black thread spread over Kakuzu's arms and a mask appeared in both hands. Fire style, intelligent hard work. Wind release, pressure damage. One mask started to inflate and burn when Kakuzu smashed into his other arm. The flames shot forward and the pressurized attack from the other mask combined with it, turning the orange/red fire white. Yugito went through a few hand signs of her own and yelled, "Breath of the two-tailed cat." An enormous blast of purple and blue flames erupted from Yugito's mouth and soared forward, slamming into Kakuzu's own fire attack. The 2 fire attacks met and cancelled each other out with a resounding boom. The grass was burned on the ground. Unfortunately for Kakuzu, he was closer and the explosion left him dazed. Daru quickly formed a shadow clone and they both yelled, "Lightning style, twin Black Panthers." Dorai and his clones both fired black lightning from their hands that took the shape of 2 large cats that charged right at Kakuzu's hearts. Kakuzu twisted himself at the last second, taking the blast on only one side. When the smoke cleared, all of Kakuzu's left side was completely gone. "I'll get you for this," Kakuzu croaked. "I'll get you." Kakuzu's hand was still replaced by a mask and pointed it at Kakuzu with the intent of killing them both with this attack. Moon release, full moon slash. Suddenly a huge blast of silver chakra and sliced right through Kakuzu's remaining heart. The man gagged for a second before he was suddenly sliced to pieces. Yugito and Daru saw a flash of silver and gold in the distance. The duo ran for it to find the guy who just killed Kakuzu with a single stroke. Meanwhile, the fight was not going good for Naruto and Daru. They quickly found Hidan's self-proclaimed immortality wasn't just hot air. The man had taken fireballs, lightning bolts, pressurized blasts, giant rocks, and water blasts and hadn't died yet. He had also managed to take some of Kirabi's physical assaults and hadn't died. Even a lightning-enhanced sword assault hadn't killed him. "You won't be able to kill me just yet," Hidan mocked. "Thanks to Jashin-sama I am immortal." In the higher plane of existence, Kami groaned and rubbed his temples in annoyance while, in his room, Jashin had a feeling that he would be in big trouble when his dad came in. Back on Earth, Naruto was growing more annoyed and growled, "That's it. I'm getting sick of this clown. Shake the Naruto was cut off when a voice yelled, "Moon release, moonlight wave." A sudden wave of silver energy shot forward and sliced Hidan's arm off. Hidan screamed in pain. They turned around to see a new character standing on the ridge. The figure was tall with long spiky silver hair, think Inuyasha's hairdo. His eyes, much like his hair, was deep silver. He was wearing a black long-sleeve shirt, with black long pants. Over that was an intricate-looking armor that looked like a knight/samurai combination with the moon symbol etched on the back. In his hand, still coated, with silver chakra, was an intricate broadsword with the image of the moon's phases on the blade. "I don't believe it," Gyuki said. "I thought they were all dead." Kirabai thought, "What you mean 8-0? The Eight Tails answered, "Many years before Kumo was founded there was a village called the Hidden Moon Village in Lightning Country. They were known for their abilities in swordsmanship. They were even known for their special chakra which was known as Moon Chakra. It is a fusion of fire, wind, and lightning chakra and is the ultimate cutting form. There was even a special version they called the Genjutsu Myaku that granted them more powerful abilities. The village was supposedly destroyed when a plague swept through the village and killed the villagers and their warriors. Apparently, one of them survived and passed the bloodline on through all these years." The man growled and jumped down. He glared right at Hidan said, "Hidan, right? Do you know who I am?" Hidan said, "No." The man said, "I am Naruto-jin, the last member of my clan. You and that stitched-up freak tore through my village and killed all my friends, everyone I knew. Now, I'm going to carve their tombstones out of your insane hide." Hidan grinned before he reached down and picked up his arm. He reattached it with a sickening crunch. "Should we help him?" Naruto asked. Kirabai answered, "Nah, I think this guy can handle himself." The two silver-haired fighters charged at each other letting out battle cries. The two met with loud clangs as their steel weapons met in show of sparks. Again and again the sound of singing steel echoed through the area. Naruto pushed against Hidan's arm and knocked him backwards. Jin drew back his arm and unleashed a vicious fire chakra-enhanced punch on Hidan's jaw. Hidan jumped up and swung his scythe to try and cut him. When it came close a layer of silver chakra repelled the blade. Hidan looked shocked as did the others, even Toru and Yugito who just arrived. "Do you like it?" Naruto asked. "I call it my moon armor. It activates whenever I feel I'm in danger. It's able to deflect most techniques up to B rank and is able to stop even the sharpest of blades. In other words, that whole Jashiness thing you got going on isn't going to help you." Hidan was nervous. If this was true then he was in big trouble. If he couldn't cut the guy he couldn't use his immortality to his advantage. And if he was able to kill Kakuzu then it was obvious that he was no pushover. Hidan was starting to think that he would need that technique. Suddenly a group of Kumo Jonin and a few Chunin appeared. Hidan silently thanked Jashin and grinned evilly. "Kirabai-sama," the lead Jonin said, "what is going on?" Before Kirabai could yell at them to stay back Hidan jumped up and swung his scythe. One by one the Kumo ninja fell and Hidan above the corpses. Hidan yelled, "Now you're dead you silver-eyed freak. Time to show you the ultimate power bestowed upon me by the great Jashin-sama. Multi-sacrificial technique, Great Blood Golem." Hidan smashed his scythe staff into the ground and the blood from the dead ninja was suddenly ripped from the bodies and wrapped around him. Not just the blood, but the flesh, skin, and bone marrow went up into the formation as well. Soon a massive golem wielding a massive scythe stood towering above the ninja. The monster laughed sending out a demonic version of Hidan's voice. "Now you pathetic worms," Hidan said, "you will all fall before the power of my ultimate technique." "Wow," Naruto said, "when did he learn to do that?" Nagato didn't say anything about it. Kirabai looked at the blonde and shrugged slightly. Naruto laughed out loud and said, "Is that all you got? Let me show you a real giant." Silver chakra covered the man with a shout then he threw his head back with a powerful shout. Genjutsu Miyako transformation, Tsukuyomi the Moon Warrior. In an explosion of silver chakra a golem just as big as the blood golem stood tall. It was tall and completely silver. It wore armor like the kind Naruto wore, but much more silver and a lot less gold. Its eyes flashed a dark blue and in his hands was a great sword that looked incredibly sharp. The Moon Warrior roared and pointed his sword at the blood golem. The two charged at each other and their weapons met with a loud clang and the ground cracked beneath a strain. The two met again and again with multiple clangs of metal as they struck each other again and again. "Hey Kirabai," Naruto said, "why is it we aren't joining this?" The eight-tailed Jinchuriki blinked behind his sunglasses and said, "I don't know. Let's join this party." Kirabai started to radiate red chakra. Suddenly a few chakra tentacles and some chakra ox horns appeared. After that his flesh and clothes burned and his body was covered in black and red muscle with an ox skeleton over him. Then in a burst of crimson chakra there was a giant ox-like creature made entirely out of what looked like muscle and the right horn was missing. Naruto held out his sword and yelled, Shake the ground with your flames, burn my enemies to cinders, Beltan. There was a flash of black and Naruto stood on the back of a massive dragon. The dragon was huge. It was a huge humanoid-looking western dragon with 10 wings spread across his back. His scales were pitch black and the scales on his chest were red. He had large curved horns, 6 rows of dagger-like teeth, and 6 evil-looking eyes. I was wondering when you would call me boy, Beltan growled. It was getting awfully cramped inside that sword of yours. So you summoned me to fight a simple Jashinist? What a disappointment. Naruto said, we also have the Moon Warrior over there. For all we know he might end up attacking us after this. The blood golem growled and said, I don't care how big any of you clowns can get. I'll kill you all. The enhanced Kirabai charged and slammed his horns into the golem's chest, making him double over. The 2 giants grappled just in time for a blast of black flames to slam into the monster's side. A large tail smashed into its head and then it dropped on his back. The Moon Warrior picked the fallen golem up and then threw him like a rag doll and he hits the ground hard. The blood golem got up and then multiple iron spikes, made from the iron in the blood, shot out and nearly pierced the Moon Warrior's armor. Beltan growled, no despair mortal. Fear release, 6 demon eyes. All 6 of Beltan's open eyes and they flashed a sickening yellow color. Suddenly the golem started screaming as dark horrors that no human should have to experience went through his mind. Beltan said, time to end this farce. All 3 started to focus for an attack. Fire, water, lightning, earth, and wind started to focus in Beltan's mouth. Red chakra focused in the air in front of the Hichibified Kirabai's face. Silver flames, wind, and lightning focused around the massive sword the Moon Warrior wielded. Beltan, fear release, ultimate nightmare blast. Hachibi/Kirabai, Hachibi Kiyamari, 8-tailed menacing ball. Moon Warrior, silver storm blade. A stream of night sky black chakra fired from Beltan's mouth. A huge blast of crimson chakra was fired from the Hichibified Kirabai, and a silver electrified laser blast was launched from the Moon Warrior's sword. When the attacks hit, the explosion was immense. The blood golem screamed in agony as his body was destroyed. Daru and Yugito dug their legs into the ground to try to not be blown away by the shockwave. Not only was the body destroyed, but in the blast front the black half of Zetsu was hit and destroyed. In plumes of smoke and flashes of light the giants were gone and the humans were back. That was awesome, Naruto yelled. He silver guy, thanks for, where did he go? The duo looked around, saw that Naraku was gone. Apparently he left after he destroyed Hidan. That was awesome, Naruto said. Listen Kirabai, there are a few more of these guys out there. Kirabai grinned and said, thanks for the help Nino. Kuma or not, you're now my bro. Naruto sweat dropped and said, seriously man, enough with the rapping. Anyway, Yugito and I might want to get back to the Konoha before someone starts to miss us. See you later, you rapper wannabe, Kirabai grinned. Then he realized what Naruto said and yelled, hey! By then Naruto and Yugito had jumped on the back of another dragon and had flown off with Karai shaking his fist at the flying lizard and shouting curses at him. Later in Amiga Core, the Deva Path stood in front of the remaining Akatsuki members. It would seem that Hidan and Kakuzu have failed, the Path said in a bored tone. Kisame grumbled something unintelligible. He was a little embarrassed from his fight because he had been caught in a bubble and almost killed by a bunch of bubbles when the fight happened. He would have killed when the Utakata used the bubble to try and crush him if Itachi hadn't saved him using his Sharingan. Zetsu's white half came up through the floor. Zetsu, the Deva Path said, where is your other half? Destroyed Pain-sama, Zetsu said, apparently it was destroyed in the battle's crossfire. The Deva Path said, unfortunate. I take it since they have not yet returned that they have failed. Tobi nodded and said, they must have failed Pain-sama. They were bad unlike Tobi. Tobi is a good boy. Everyone rolled their eyes. For now we must wait, the man said, with the 6 tails under our control again we can begin an attempt up on the 1 tails. For now we wait. Itachi asked, why must we wait Pain-sama? Me and Kisame are ready to deploy. The Deva Path answered, you need to rest. The Ichibi Jinchuriki is powerful until he is subdued. You are of no use to us dead. For now rest. In the meantime, I believe I may have found a new recruit for our cause. With his business done the Path returned to his master's side and the remaining Akatsuki members left. As they did Tobi was in thought. Pain was acting strangely in recent day. Was he trying to betray him to Konoha? Tobi immediately shook his head against these thoughts. Pain was a patient man and they would need all the strength they had left to fight and contain the Jinchuriki. Besides he knew that Pain was a patient man. He waited many years for peace and he could wait a few days more. Later at an unknown location, Naraku-jin sat on log in front of a small campfire. He was using a whetstone to sharpen his sword. He grinned as he sharpened his weapon at the thought of getting back at those freaks that wiped out his town. He was the last of his kind, the protector of his village, and he had avenged them. He stopped sharpening as he recalled the other three. They had powerful chakra like his. Were they descendant of his old clan as well? The sound of a snapping twig got his attention. He rose up and pointed his weapon at the direction of the noise and said, "Who's there? I know someone is out there, so come out." Out of the darkness Nagato slowly came. He was walking better since he practiced a lot on his new legs. He looked at the man. He was just how Naruto's summon had described him. He mentally thanked his nephew for telling him about this man, as he may be of use. "Calm yourself, friend," Nagato said. "I mean you no harm." Naraku lowered his weapon, but not his guard. "What do you want?" the silver-eyed man asked, his muscles tense. Nagato answered, "I have a proposition for you." Chapter 17, The Calm Before the Storm. It had been a week since the death of Hidan and Kakuzu. Naruto had managed to collect their bounties and the duo had gone back to Konoha. Naruto was sitting in the living room watching a move with Tsume, Yugito, and Fu when Kira walked in. "Hey, Daddy," the girl said, "look what I found in the training yard." Naruto turned around to see his daughter holding a light brown bunny. The girl immediately cooed and went over to rub the animal's soft fur. While this was happening, Naruto noticed that the rabbit had purple and black ripples in its eyes. "Hey girls," Naruto said, "I'd hate to interrupt your kawaii moment, but I think that is a messenger summon from Nagato." The girls all sighed over dramatically and set the small animal down on the ground. The rabbit's eyes glowed before it fired a projection of Nagato forward. The projection said, "Naruto, as you know, the only active members of the Akatsuki left are Tobi, Itachi, Kisame and one half of the member called Zetsu. Recently I have added a new member named Naraku-jin. He will be a sleeper agent in my organization and shall be partnered with the last remaining half of Zetsu." Now I'm not sure if Tobi is starting to catch on, but I saw him discussing something with Zetsu earlier today. If he is onto our plan, then we need to strike fast. Bring Jiraiya and your friends to Ame in exactly 3 days. Then we shall begin our attack. Also tell Kira that she can keep the bunny. Consider it a really late birthday present. Goodbye. As soon as the message was over, Kira squealed and swept the small, fuzzy mammal up into her arms and started to cuddle it. "Can I hold it?" Yugito asked. "No. He's my bunny," Kira said as she ran off. "Oh come on, I want to pet him too," Yugito yelled in a childlike manner as she ran after Naruto and Fu's daughter. Tsume, Naruto, and Fu all burst out laughing as the duo ran around arguing over who got to hold Kira's new pet. Naruto said, "Well, I got to go tell Tsunade about my uncle's plan. See you all later, alright?" Tsume said, "Okay, see you later, Naruto-kun." With that, Naruto left and headed straight for the Hokage Tower. The blonde entered the room to see that Tsunade was fast asleep on her desk with a few stacks of paperwork nearby. Naruto shook his head at the sight of the powerful yet lazy cage in front of him. Naruto walked over to the side of the room and pulled out a gong that Shizune had hidden there in case of such moment. Naruto drew back the stick and slammed it into the gong, making a loud noise that got the secretary's attention outside. Tsunade shot up with a scream as she clung to the roof using chakra, looking around like she was a scared cat. Naruto laughed like crazy at seeing the powerful Sannin digging her fingers into the roof. Naruto whipped out a camera and snapped a photo before he said, "Finally, I have a little future blackmail on you." Tsunade glared down at Naruto and got down from the ceiling. "What is it, Naruto?" Tsunade asked as she sat down. "I need to talk to you and Jiraiya about something regarding the Akatsuki." At that moment there was a scream of pervert from what sounded like Sakura. The sound of a loud impact, a body flying through the air, someone screaming, and finally a body dropped through the ceiling with a loud crash. The person was then revealed to be Jiraiya. The man had a huge fist-shaped indent in his face. "Let me guess," Naruto said, "he was trying to peep on some of the girls at the hot springs again." Tsunade nodded and said, "Yep. Good thing he ran into the former student of yours. It almost reminds me of how I would beat him when I found him peeping on me." Jiraiya jumped up and the indent on his face popped out. He dusted himself off and looked at the duo in front of him like nothing had happened. "Hey you two," Jiraiya said, "what did I miss?" Naruto answered, "Nothing. We missed you getting your perverted butt handed to you by Sakura though. That is something I wanted to see." Tsunade nodded and said, "Anyway, I was just about to call you Jiraiya. Naruto has something he needs to tell us." Naruto looked at the two cage-level ninja and said, "A few minutes ago I got a message from Nagato Uzumaki aka Pain. He told me that there are only 4 active members of the Akatsuki left. He told me that he allowed another member to join who shall act like a sleeper agent. He told me to meet him near Omegakure in at least 3 days." Jiraiya asked, "That sounds interesting. Who is this sleeper agent?" Naruto answered, "His name is Naraku-jin. Yugito and I encountered him on the mission to Kumo. He had an important hand in the battle with Kakuzu and Hidan. He actually played a hand in both of their deaths." Jiraiya rubbed his chin and aid, "Okay, we'll go. Until then, stock up, kiss your girlfriends and daughters goodbye. We'll set for omake tomorrow to make sure we get there in a decent amount of time." Naruto got up and nodded. The blonde then went out of the office to go stock up. He went to the local higurashi shop. He stocked up on some food pills, a few kunai, shuriken, senbon, a few explosive notes, flash bombs, and a couple of his old man's tri-pronged kunai. He also got a few feet of ninja wire, and some food and plasma pills, just in case. Naruto went home and told his girls about what was going to happen with Kira out of the room, of course. The girls were a little upset at first, but they relented and allowed Naruto to go. That night Naruto made everyone's favorites. Ramen for him, sushi for Yugito, a big hibachi-style steak for Tsume, a big plate of dango and rice balls for Fu, and finally some fried chicken and shrimp for Kira. They all ate in silence. Later that night while Naruto was tucking Kira into bed, he noticed that she looked a little bit upset. "Is something wrong, my little butterfly?" Naruto asked as he looked at his daughter. "I heard you're going to be leaving again," Kira-chan said sadly. "I heard you talking to mommy and the others." Naruto said, "I've gone before, Kira-chan. I've always come back." Kira sniffed and said, "But you might not this time. I heard how dangerous they are from the Tor ninja around the village. I don't want you to leave daddy. I don't want you to die." Naruto looked down at his crying little girl and hugged her. "Listen to me, Kira-chan," Naruto said, "being in danger comes with the territory. If I didn't go, your mommy, Yugito, and Tsume would all be in danger. That's the last thing that I want. If I don't come back, I want you to be strong for me. Be strong and take care of your mothers for me, especially Fluffy." Motions toward Kira's new rabbit. "Okay?" Kira sniffed and said, "Okay. Come back safe, daddy." The two hugged and Naruto kissed the girl on the forehead. Naruto then tucked her and stepped out the door, silently closing it. Naruto then went back to his and his girl's room. When he opened the door, his jaw nearly hit the floor. His girls sat on the bed, all of them scantily clad, and looking at him with a come-to-me look in their eyes. Tsume got up and walked over to him with a slight sway in her step. Tsume grinned as she saw Naruto's eyes drink in her form. She ran her hands nimbly over Naruto's chest and said, "Since we might only have you for one more night, we might as well make the best of it." Tsume then pulled the blonde into the room with a powerful yank and closed the door before she activated the silencing seal on the door. The next morning, Naruto was standing at the gate with his girls and his daughter around him. Jiraiya stood nearby with a smirk on his face as he saw the girls limping and how Naruto looked a little haggard after the whole thing. "One word, Orosenin," Naruto said. "I'll feed you to one of my dragon summons and make sure that it hurts you badly before it feasts upon your insides." Kira said, "Yeah, Orosenin." Jiraiya grumbled about disrespectful brats and not having any respect for their elders. Naruto said, "We'll be back in less than a week. If I'm not back by then, well, you can guess." Naruto then looked at Kira and said, "Be strong for me, honey." Kira hugged Fluffy closer to her chest and nodded. With that, Naruto and his perverted godfather left for Omegakure. 2 days later, a few miles away from Omegakure, Naruto and Jiraiya stood just outside of Omegakure. Naruto looked down at the village and said, "Where is he? He should have met us by now." At that moment, Naruto and Jiraiya sensed a new presence behind him. Naruto spun around and threw a punch just to have it caught by a man with orange hair that had multiple piercings. Naruto would have attacked again if it wasn't for the fact that he noticed he had purple eyes with a lack ripple pattern. "Nagato?" Naruto asked. The man said, "Close. I am a part of one of his abilities for the Rinnegan called the Six Paths of Pain. I am what is called the Predapath. The real Nagato sent me as a messenger. He told you that the attack will commence in 3 minutes. We're going to need something to draw Omegakure's forces away from center of the village where the Akatsuki meets." Naruto rubbed his chin and said, "I believe I know how. Tell him that the attack will commence in 5 minutes, maybe more." The path nodded before he vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto quickly drew some blood on his thumb and said, "Summoning Jutsu, 5 dragon warlords." In a huge blast of smoke, 5 dragons appeared. All of them were eastern dragons. The first one had dark red scales on his back and an orange underbelly with orange crest running down his back. His mane was made of fire. On his head was a crown made out of molten rock. His eyes were actually made of blue fire. This was Pyratheses, the fire warlord. The second dragon had gray scales on his back and a peppermint green underbelly. It also had peppermint green spines going down its back. He had a feathery mane and his crown was made of condensed air. His eyes shined wide and gray in the light. This was Ventinus, the wind warlord. The third dragon had gold scales on its back, and dark gray underbelly and dark gray spikes running down its back. His mane was made of electricity and its crown looked like it was made of a bunch of magnets. His eyes flashed electric blue. This was Radine, pronounced Rydane, the lightning warlord. The fourth dragon was completely brown. His eyes were a golden brown and his mane looked like it was made of iron and his crown was made out of rubies. This was Gaelanos, the Earth Warlord. The last dragon was entirely dark blue. His eyes were sea green and he had a mane made of steam and crown made out of ice. This was Levianus the Water Warlord. The 5 Eastern dragons bowed to Naruto and said in unison, "For what reason have you summoned us, Naruto-sama?" Naruto said, "I want you 5 to go with a clone of mine to 5 different corners of this village. When given the signal, you and the clones are to attack. Am I understood?" The 5 dragons nodded and Naruto formed 5 shadow clones that went with the dragons who cloaked themselves so that they wouldn't be seen. The group went through to the 5 points of the village. After about 5 minutes of waiting, the dragons focused their power and the clones started going through hand signs. Pyrthes, Dragon Release, Flames of Rage. Clone 1, Fire Style, Ultimate Technique, Rage of the Dragon God. Continues, Dragon Release, Tempest Wind Rage. Clone 2, Wind Style, Ultimate Technique, Rage of the Wind God. Raiding, Dragon Release, White Lightning Circus. Clone 3, Lightning Style, Ultimate Technique, Thor's Hammer. Guaianos, Dragon Release, Great Beast Quake. Clone 4, Earth Style, Ultimate Technique, Wrath of Gaia. Levianus, Dragon Release, Water Dragon Storm. Clone 5, Water Style, Ultimate Technique, Poseidon's Wrath. 2 huge blasts of pure white flames, 2 Category 5 hurricanes, 1 large blast of lightning, a swarm of lightning bolts, a huge earthquake, and an enormous flood hit the sides of Omake. The village was immediately thrown into turmoil as the walls around the village crumbled and multiple buildings were flattened. The ninja of Omake rushed towards the attack sites and were immediately attacked by the 5 warlords. The clones had dispersed as soon as they launched their jutsu. Naruto and Jiraiya shot into the city, running through the village to get to the center where the Akatsuki slept. Meanwhile, Naraku shot up as he heard the sound of explosions and screams of pain. He ran out of his room and immediately found that the others were running for the main chamber. He followed them and found Pain's Deva Path waiting for them. Leader Sama, the white half of Zetsu, said, "What is going on?" The Deva Path answered, "It is simple, Zetsu, your destruction." The remaining Akatsuki members looked shocked when they heard this. Suddenly Naraku shot forward and swung his weapon, effortlessly slicing through the Zetsu's remaining body. Less than a second later, all of Zetsu's body was sliced to pieces. Kisame roared, "Traitor!" He swung Samada just for Naraku's long sword to turn into a Greta sword and take the full brunt of the attack. "Is that all you got?" Naraku yelled as he pushed back and with a mighty kick knocked Kisame through a nearby wall. The silver-eyed man jumped after the fish man to continue their fight. Toby glared at Pain and said, "How dare you betray me, Pain?" The rest of the paths of Pain appeared and the real Nagato appeared. He was walking easily as he had finally gotten used to his new legs. Konan appeared nearby with her powers at the ready. Nagato answered, "You should have known that I would find out that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was my nephew. For my clan, family stood above all else. Now Toby, it is time for you to die." With that, the paths of Pain, Nagato, and Konan charged at Itachi and Madara. The final battle had finally begun. Chapter 18, The Final Battle. Itachi's eyes flashed as Amaterasu flames shot forward at Nagato as he charged at Toby. The redhead slammed his fist into the ground, causing a wall of flames to shoot up. The flames countered each other for a second. Thinking quickly, Nagato used his control over wind to increase the power of his own flames and then used some water he pulled from the air around them to blast the Amaterasu flames. I was enough to weaken the flames. As this happened, the Asura path shot forward and transformed his arm into a chainsaw. Itachi dodged the attack just to be hit in the side by a flurry of paper. The paper wrapped around him and then pulled him into the next room. "I gave you your eyes, Nagato," Toby said. "How could you turn on me for all that I have given you?" Nagato answered, "I was only a means to an end for you. When the time came, you would have turned on me." Toby snarled and said, "Too bad, you made a good leader. Now you shall fall along with the rest of your clan." With that, Toby and Nagato along with his 6 paths of pain charged at each other. Meanwhile, Itachi rolled across the ground and started right at Konan, who took her human form with a pair of large paper wings. "You cannot beat me," the Uchiha killer said with his eyes activated. Konan said, "We shall see, Itachi." The two stared at one another with equally emotionless gazes. Outside the tower, Kisame roared as he swung his sword with the intent of ripping Jin. "Finally found out that his name was told in the old Japanese way, so I called him by his last name the whole time." Apart, Jin swung his great sword and the two weapons met with a loud clang. The opposing swordsmen grappled and wrestled against the other for supremacy. Kisame pushed Jin away and went through hand signs before he yelled, "Water Style, Water Shark Bullet." Kisame pushed his arms forward and out of the water on the ground and all over a shark form, charging right at Jin. Jin went through some one-sided hand signs of his own and yelled, "Wind Style, Tornado Blast." Jin clapped his hands together, sending a tornado forward. The tornado dispersed the water the shark was made of and sent it flying at Kisame. Kisame was hit just to turn into a water clone. Kisame burst out of the ground nearby and brought Saimata down with the intent of shaving away the flesh of Jin's head. Jin dodged the attack and swung his sword. Kisame ducked and received a knee to the nose. Kisame dug his heels into the moist ground. Jin charged forward and swung his sword meeting Saimata with a loud clang. The two traded blows, their clangs just barely audible over the sound of the dragon warlords attacking around them. Kisame kicked Jin away before swinging a fist slamming it in Jin's face knocking him away. Kisame then went through a few hand signs and called out, "Water style, rainwater shark wave." Kisame slammed his hand on the ground sending multiple water droplets in the air. As the droplets fell they took the form of different sharks. Jin quickly went through hand signs and yelled, "Moon release, lunar shield." Jin held his sword out and a wall of lunar light formed in front of him deflecting the water attacks. Kisame growled in frustration and went through hand signs again. "Water style, great shark bullet." Kisame pushed both his arms forward and an enormous shark made entirely out of water shot forward at Jin. Jin raised his sword and yelled, "Moon release, white moon splitting." Jin swung his sword down sending a wave of silver chakra forward that sliced right through Kisame's jutsu. The water spread out like a flood. Jin shot up and actually started flying. Kisame looked up in shock before he gained an enraged look. Kisame snarled at the man. "That's it," the mad swordsman growled, "I've had it with you." Kisame completely uncovered Saimata before he placed it against his chest. The spikes on the blade began to spread across Kisame's chest and then his whole body. The man grew a bit in height and his robe and shirt ripped leaving him only in his pants. His body became slightly sleeker and a tail grew. He grew large fins on the backs of his arms and his face became distinctly more shark-like. "Now," Kisame said with a dark scowl and a slightly deeper voice, "I'll show you why they call me the tailless-tailed beast." Kisame roared and charged forward. Jin dodged one strike but a follow-up knocked him backwards and into a lake. Kisame grinned and then shot forward tackling Jin into the water. Once underwater, Kisame started punching doing his best to make Jin open his mouth so he could drown. Kisame sank his teeth into Jin's shoulder drawing blood and making Jin cry out in pain making a gurgling noise and sending bubbles to the surface. Kisame grinned as he continued to gnaw on Jin's shoulder. Jin brought suddenly sent out a volt of lightning chakra through his body making the shark man cry out in pain. As Kisame let go Jin pulled back his fist and let loose a punch powered by wind chakra knocking him backwards and out of the water. Silver chakra covered him as he thought, Jinjutsu Miyako transformation, Tsukuyomi the Moon Warrior. On the shore Kisame spat some blood and a tooth out of his mouth. He turned towards the water and yelled, "Come on. Is that all you got?" The water exploded and Jin, in his Moon Warrior form, rose up like a monolith out of the water. The giant raised his fist. Kisame looked up at the giant and said, "Oh, crud." Wham! Kisame was crushed under the giant fist. The giant unleashed a flurry of blows forming a massive crater where Kisame was. Pretty soon blood was seen on his massive fists. The man rose up and cracked his knuckles and in a flash reverted back to Jin. To be sure Jin went through hand signs and fired a blast of fire forward and burned the body of Kisame. Jin rubbed his bleeding shoulder before he took out a plasma pill and ate it. Then he picked up Saimata and put it away in a special storage scroll. He knew that he could get a lot of money for returning it to Kirigakure. He glanced behind him to see Jiraiya and Naruto jumped over him and headed right for the tower. He grinned and was about to take his leave when he heard an explosion. Jin looked at the hole and ran forward and then he jumped into the hole that was formed. He was greeted with the sight of Itachi Uchiha being surrounded by a twister of paper. Jin saw the paper make complete mincemeat of a piece of furniture meaning that the paper was actually very sharp. Despite being in a literal storm of blades Itachi was completely calm. Itachi went through hand signs and said, "Fire style, Phoenix Sage Power Nail Crimson." Itachi threw some shuriken incredible fast and he fired a blast of fire chakra from his mouth infusing the two. The burning blades flew forward. The paper dispersed avoiding the flames before some of the paper folded into shuriken firing forward. Itachi simply opened his eyes and the shuriken burst into black flames. More paper shuriken came from his back. These actually managed to pierce his skin. Itachi spun around and went through more hand signs. Fire style, Phoenix Fire Sage Technique. Itachi fired a volley of small fireballs as the paper user's twister. The paper dispersed to avoid the flames. Jin jumped through the paper and swung his sword. Itachi dodged the attack and opened his eyes intending on capturing Jin in a genjutsu. He was shocked when Jin didn't even stop. He dodged a few more attacks and then whipped out a kunai with lightning speed and stabbed it into Jin's chest. Jin burst into water. Jin burst up from the floor and swung a lot of kunai that riddled Itachi's back. Itachi spun around and dodged another sword swing from Jin. Then he had to dodge another volley of paper shuriken and kunai from Konan. Konan formed her body quickly and the paper in the air around her formed a large circle. Paper chakram. The massive circular blade shot forward. Jin performed a session to avoid the massive paper blade, but he didn't have time to dodge the massive blade. Itachi said, Tsukuyomi. Suddenly, purple chakra appeared around him and formed a large rib cage. The chakram slammed into the rib and it pushed against the ribs. The ribs groaned a bit and started to split. After that the chakra burned and was deflected off it. Jin charged forward and yelled, Moon release, fist of Tsukuyomi. Jin unleashed a powerful punch that launched a huge fist. Itachi's eyes widened as the giant chakra fist slammed into the rib cage surrounding him. The sound of cracking was heard. The ribs around Itachi broke. Silver chakra focused around Jin's hands as he unleashed a vicious combination that not only smashed into the Ma's body, but it also formed multiple lacerations. Jin slammed a knee into Itachi's stomach. The last member of the Naraku clan jumped back and said, Moon release, lunar wave. Jin clapped his hands sending a wave of silver chakra that formed and knocked Itachi through the hole in the wall and sent him flying through the air. Konan formed her body and then said, Paper person of God technique. Countless sheets of paper shot forward. Unseen on the paper was a bunch of explosive note hidden in them. The paper stole forward towards Itachi and he was completely covered in them. The explosive notes then exploded with incredible force. Only human and paper ashes were left. The sound of an explosion from down below got their attention. They both nodded and went down to the floor below. Meanwhile, Naruto and Jiraiya had finally arrived. The duo had been delayed by a bunch of omake ninja. Naruto had taken out a Mimui to take the down quickly. He and the perverted sage ran forward and landed in front of the fight between Tobi and Nagato. Nagato was alive and well, but the animal path was destroyed as was the Asura path. Naruto said, Surf, great wave. A wave of water shot forward from Naruto's trident blasting Tobi away from his uncle. You okay? Naruto asked. Nagato nodded and said, yes. Be careful, he has the ability to turn intangible and he has the ability to use the powers of the Sharingan. Tobi rose up from the ground and spat out some excess water. Tobi's eye hole in his mask flashed red and Tobi threw out a punch sending churka chains flying from his arm. Naruto spun Mimui catching the chains and wrapping it around the weapon. He pulled on it with incredible strength ripping Tobi forward. He stabbed the weapon forward only for it to go right through Tobi's chest. You can't beat me, Tobi said, I am a god-given human form. I am eternal. Naruto said, oh. Shut up. Bring the fury of the storm. Double tortoise shell. There was a huge flash of blue. On Naruto's arms was a pair of large blue shields. They were both in the shape of shells and had massive crystals on them. Tobi unleashed a flurry of kunai and shuriken. Naruto covered himself with his shield and he jumped up. The shield closed together and he rolled forward like a pinball. Tobi dodged the giant pinball of doom just for it to turn in and nearly bowl him over again. Inside the giant shield-made ball Naruto's eyes flashed green. The giant ball that was once Naruto sped up with a wind chakra concentrated on it. Tobi turned intangible and avoided the main attack. However, he turned tangible at a bad time and he was nearly killed by multiple blades of wind that followed the orb sliced his chest. Jiraiya, Nagato and the remaining paths off Pien came forward to take the advantage of Tobi's disorientation. Nagato held out his hand and suddenly increased gravity around Tobi making it impossible for the man to move. Jiraiya's hair grew to an incredible length and he called out, Wild Lion's main technique. Jiraiya's hair shot forward and formed a large mouth that roared and sank its teeth into the immobilized Tobi's shoulder. The man cried out in pain. The Deva path sent a wave of gravity forward that applied pressure to all of Tobi's body making it near impossible for him to breathe. The Preta path jumped behind Tobi and started to drain the chakra from his body. Tobi managed to phase out of the path's grip and then smashed a mine made out of explosive tags into the man's chest. It exploded destroying the man. The Naraka path unleashed a brutal right hook that cracked Tobi's mask. Tobi dodged to the left and then spun around slamming his fist into the Naraka path's jaw breaking it and then used the Amaterasu flames to burn him. The human path jumped up and grabbed the back of Tobi's head. The path started to pull on him and started to remove his soul. Unfortunately, Tobi took a hidden dagger out of his sleeve and stabbed it into the path's head killing him. The Deva path sent out another gravity wave sending Tobi backward and smashing him back into the wall. Jiraiya quickly summoned two toads. One was green and the other was purple. All Jiraiya did was point at Tobi and the two toads immediately understood. The two toads opened their mouths and their tongues shot forward like bullets. Their tongues pierced both of Tobi's shoulders. The two toads then started whipping Tobi's body with their tongues at incredible speed and with incredible strength for such small amphibians. Way to go pervy sage, Naruto said as his weapon turned back into a regular sword. Suddenly, Toby caught their tongues and pulled on them like ripcords and slammed them together, effectively knocking them out. Jiraiya growled and formed a Rasengan and shot forward and slammed the attack into Toby's midsection, making the man cry out in pain. The Toad Sage jumped back and Naruto's eyes turned green. Windblade. Naruto swung his sword, sending a blade of wind that Toby was able to turn intangible just as the attack smashed and sliced through the wall. Toby glared right at Nagato, wanting to kill him quick because this gravity attacks were getting annoying. Just as his Sharingan eye flashed, Jiraiya knew what was going to happen. He pushed Nagato out of the way just as the black flames burst in Jiraiya's face. The Toad Sage screamed in absolute agony as the black flames. Naruto looked down at Jiraiya. He got on his knees. He looked into Jiraiya's eyes and saw the life leave the man's eyes. "Fool," Toby said, thinking that he could stop me. "He met the same fate as all who stand in my way." Naruto's eyes turned furious. The curse mark on his neck spread and Naruto ascended to his second stage form. He glared right at Toby and growled, "Freeze, Shimodora." The ice katana appeared in Naruto's hands. Naruto then growled, "Freeze the blood in their veins." Great Tundra Hunter. Shimodora flashed and in its place were a pair of gauntlets with large claws on Naruto's hands. If Toby hadn't been so arrogant, he would have noticed Naruto's eyes were now completely purple. Toby launched the Amaterasu flames again. Gravity split them apart as Naruto shot forward and his claws started to glow with frozen energy. Naruto swung his claws, slicing Toby's chest. Ice spread from the wounds, shocking Toby. Naruto continued to swing and claw at the insides of Toby. In a matter of seconds, Toby's body was completely covered in ice. Naruto jumped back and chakra spiraled around his arm. Chakra focused in his hand and an orb of fire, water, lightning, wind, and earth formed on his finger and a large orb formed in his palm. Naruto shot forward and yelled, "Five-pronged Rasengan." The attack slammed right into Toby's frozen body. The ice cracked and it all shattered, destroying Toby's body. As Naruto walked away, he snapped his fingers and gravity increased around the icy remains of Toby were completely obliterated under the intense pressure. Naruto dropped to his knees and roared in a mix of rage and sorrow at the death of his godfather. Nagato walked forward and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. The two then shared a family hug. They immediately separated though, because it got awkward. With that, Naruto left to go back to his village. He just hoped that Tsunade didn't kill him when the time came. 3 weeks later, Naruto sat down on the couch with Kira in his arms. After Naruto left Tame, he went back to Konohagakure. Tsunade was glad when she found out that the Akatsuki was dead, but was upset when she found out that her perverted teammate died. She was upset and they held a memorial. A few of the toads showed up, except Gamabunta because he didn't want to accidentally sit on one of the guests. At the same time, Naruto was focusing with the gravity power he got from his fight with Toby. Turned out Naruto got an ability to control gravity like his uncle could with the Rinnegan. Naruto currently sat in front of the TV. He had been given a vacation for his victory over the Akatsuki. Naruto sat with Kira when Tsume, Yugito, and Fu entered the room, looking at each other excitedly. "What's up, girls?" Naruto asked as he looked at the trio. Fu giggled and said, "Naruto, Yugito and Tsume have something to tell you." Naruto looked at the two and asked, "What is it?" Yugito grinned and said, "Well, you see, me and Yugito have been feeling weird lately. We went to hospital and I don't know how to say this." Tsume blurted out, "We're pregnant." Naruto's eyes widened for a moment. Naruto swayed back and forth and then collapsed on his back with a smile on his face. Kira asked, "What does pregnant mean?" Yugito picked her up and answered, "It's an adult thing. Basically, it means you're going to be a big sister soon." Kira was quiet before she squealed, I'm going to be a sister." She hugged Yugito's stomach, making her giggle slightly. Time skip, 16 years later. Naruto sat in the Kija's office going through some important files while his shadow clones went through his useless paperwork. A few months after the death of Toby, Tsunade resigned, giving her position to Naruto. Naruto immediately worked on trying to get better relations with different villages. This took about 3 years of his time as Kage, since most of them weren't willing to let go of some old grudges. Naruto looked over at a picture on the wall. It depicted Konan wearing a wedding dress and Nagato in a tuxedo. Naruto smiled fondly at the memory. About a year after Toby's death, Nagato and Konan fixed up Omake, and at some point Nagato proposed. Naruto, his wives, and Kira were all invited to the wedding. Naruto wound up being the best man, and Kira, much to the joy of everyone else, got to be the flower girl. Naruto remembered a few girls there talking about how cute Kira was in her flower girl dress. Right now the two had a son and daughter they named Kushina and Yahiko. Naruto also remembered what happened to Jin. It turns out Jin went to Kirigakure to return Samata. There he met the Mizukage, Materumi, and was instantly smitten. He returned a few times after that to retrieve bounties and other things. Eventually they went out and about a year later married. Their son, Jiro, had grown up to be strong ninja with a mix of his mother and father's bloodlines. Naruto remembered being invited to the wedding. He remembered saying that if he hadn't met Naruto and his uncle he never would have come to Kiri and met his beautiful wife. Naruto also saw a picture of Tsuneya standing in front of the ribbon cutting of a building. After retiring, Tsunade actually did something to help her money problems. She opened up a casino in Tanzuka-gai. She was on her way to becoming one of the richest women in the country. Naruto was brought out of memory lane when the door opened. Team 7 reporting for our next mission, Rakudime-sama, said his now 19-year-old daughter. The girl had grown tall, slender, and was beautiful just like her mother. She wore a regular jonin flak jacket with a butterfly on the back, some black hanbu pants, sandals, and had a miniature crossbow on her wrist. Over the years her bloodline had developed to where she could create more than butterfly wings with her chakra. She could form a scorpion's tail, a dragonfly's wings, a spider's fangs or legs, and so on. In the academy she had her father's reputation as a prankster to help increase her stealth skills. She became a prodigy just like him, becoming a jonin soon after she graduated the academy thanks to her own intense training. She was jonin level even without her bloodline being used. Naruto looked at her team, which consisted of Kira's younger brother and sister. Yugito and Naruto's daughter was Tora. Like her parents, she was blonde and she had icy blue eyes that only turned icy when she was angry. She wore a black shirt with a purple jacket and some cargo pants with sandals. She also gained some cat-like whiskers on her cheeks. Her bloodline had been altered with Anibi's chakra like Kira. While he couldn't form creature parts like Kira, she was able to control hellfire like Yugito. She was just graduated and she had graduated at the top of the class. Tsume and Naruto's son was Hanto, named after Tsume's late ex-husband. Naruto wanted to name him Minato like his father, but he lost the coin toss. He had black hair and a pair of wolfish blue eyes. On his cheeks he had black fang tattoos. He wore a black shirt with a tan jacket and some short with sandals with bandages around his ankles. At his feet was a black wolf pup named Fang. He had his father's bloodline as well. His didn't change due to demon chakra, but he found a way to merge it with Fang, giving him elemental control as well. They were coming up with their own moves to use. The final member was Asuma Sartabai. Sometime after Tobi died, Kurama and Asuma got married. After a while though, the man's smoking habit caught up with him and he contracted lung cancer. He died and Kurama named her son after his dead father. The boy was growing into a miniature version of his father, minus the beard. He was about as tall as Hanto with dead features, short black hair, and red eyes like his mother. He had on a black shirt and short cargo pants and some sandals. Team 7, Naruto said, "Let's me see. Ah. Here we go. This is a D-ranked mission. The Fire Daimyo's cat and her litter have managed to escape her again. Your mission is to find them without causing too much damage." Hanto said, "Dad, it's just a couple of cats. What the worst that they could do?" Naruto said, "Rule 1 of the ninja world. Never underestimate the enemy. Now go." The team ran out. Tsume, Fu, and Yugito came in. "Let me guess, you gave them the Tora mission, didn't you?" Fu asked. Naruto said, "I'm considering this payback for when Hanto painted graffiti all over the Hokage monument and when he put hot sauce in my ramen broth." The girls laughed fondly at the memory. When the latter happened, Naruto ran around clutching his burning mouth, yelled, "Ramen! Why have you betrayed me?" The first time though, they had to save their Sochi from both Naruto and Tsunade's wrath. He painted the first Hokage with a nosebleed and wide eyes, he gave the second Hokage bug eye, and a bowl cut, he made the son dye milk like a monkey, he drew whisker marks, fox eyes, and the word doofus on the fourth's face, he painted a bubble from Tsunade's saying that she had implants, and had Naruto's head saying that ramen sucked. Despite his anger at his son, Naruto couldn't help but laugh at the memory. His laughter increased when he heard screams coming from the forest. "So," Tsume said sultrily, "they aren't going to be back for a few hours. Want to help us pass the time?" Naruto grinned before his eyes turned green. The door and windows shut and locked. The blinds shut and silencing seals were put up. "I love my life," Naruto said as three girls converged on him. Meanwhile, Hanto sat against a tree with Fang pinning toward to the ground with his teeth. The kittens were caught and being cuddled by the girls of the team. He and Asuma were the only two covered in scars. Then out of nowhere all the cats escaped somehow and made a break for it. "Dad," Hanto growled, "I will get you for this. I swear by the prank god I shall get my revenge." Kira smacked Hanto over the head and said, "Shut up, puppy. We need to catch those cats again. Move out." Hanto rubbed the back of his head and grumbled at the nickname his mom had given him. He and his team ran off to face one of the greatest challenges of their Jonin careers, catching the demon cat. That's the end, guys. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.